Hello everyone, welcome to What If Luffy Got Lost in My Hero Academia World Part 6. Before we start, please go support Andriuha for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. Chapter 22. Ultimate Moves. UA Dorms. The same morning. Luffy and Momo were walking side by side, Luffy being a little further on than Momo because he was walking with newfound determination. He was wearing his hat, something Momo was thankful for, and also bore the huge smile that Momo's been missing. He was walking like he just found out what Christmas is. They were walking in comfortable silence, which was a surprise for Momo since she thought Luffy would have talked her ear off, but she wasn't gonna question it, maybe he just needs a buffer. She thought. We're almost there. I'm guessing most of our classmates are already awake, even if it is the weekend. They're all probably getting ready for their workouts. Momo said to fill the empty air. Since we're all living together, they all found a workout partner. Oh, I didn't think about that. I wonder who's working out with who. Luffy said in a cheery manner. Well, from what I've heard, Kirishima and Bakugo are going to the gym together. Iida likes to run marathons, unfortunately, nobody's fast enough to keep up with him. Shiro and Kaminari like to team up sometimes. Mina likes to gather up as many of the girls and guys as she can to have a workout group. She tried asking me sometimes, but I never accepted. Momo talked. Why not? Luffy asked. It's a bit embarrassing to say, but I was the one who had to look after you. Momo said while looking down and rubbing her arm. But it's not that I didn't want to work out with them, I just cold. Bonk. Now Momo yelped in pain after Luffy lightly hit her head. He had an uncharacteristically frustrated expression on his face. Wow, you idiot, why were you looking after me when I was perfectly fine by myself? Luffy said, slightly raising his voice as he stopped and started pointing a finger at Momo. Huh? In case you forgot, you were just moping around all day, barely touching your food, Momo said as she quickly forgot about her head pain and adopted an annoyed expression on her face. Now, Momo's a smart girl, she knows that Luffy is saying this out of concern for her, and she also knows that Luffy isn't really mad, just being overprotective right now. However, from what she knows, siblings are supposed to bicker, so she also isn't really mad, more so she's playing along with Luffy. Plus, she likes seeing Luffy get mad. It was like a puppy trying to protect its owner, cute and amusing. It wasn't that bad, Luffy said. It was that bad. Oh yeah? Then why did you never eat? You only did when I forced you, Momo said, adopting an aggressive stance. I never ate when you forced me, I did it because I wanted to, Luffy refuted. Really? Then look straight into my eyes and tell me that you would have eaten if I didn't force you, Momo exclaimed, fixing a piercing gaze on Luffy's eyes. I would have eaten. Luffy stammered, with a waterfall of sweat on his face while he was looking away. Right after he finished he tried to whistle, failing. Luffy's terrible skills in lying came to his detriment once again. Ah, see, Momo said while pointing her finger victoriously. DSK, Luffy said in defeat as he hung his head in annoyance. He wasn't really in a place to argue when Momo held all the cards. Momo felt a unique sense of victory. It wasn't like winning first place or beating the other kid at a game. It felt more personal. Still, you should have gone to train. It's not like I'm a baby, you know. Sure, if you say so. Momo said as she took a more motherly attitude towards the sulking Luffy. Now she had a choice, whether to revel in her victory or let it go. On one hand, this is their first sibling quarrel, and she does feel like celebrating. On the other, Luffy just came out of a terrible, life-threatening experience. If you feel really that bad, then you could join me on the next workout session. Luffy said, sulk completely gone as if it never existed, and continued to march towards the dorms. It's too early. Momo thought as she followed Luffy. Still, she is thankful that Luffy is back to his old ways. But don't think I'm the only one who didn't agree. She's lucky if she can get 4 kids to go with her. Really? Like who? Luffy asked as they saw their dormitory. Jiro doesn't like it. Ajiro has his own dojo that he likes to go to, same thing with Todoroki, and Midori always goes out first before she can even ask him. Momo said. Also, Aizawa said something about a new training method, so everybody's pretty excited about that. Then I'm excited for it too, Luffy said as he pumped a fist into the air. He opened the door to the dorms. We'll have to see if Mr. Aizawa allows it first. Momo almost said but decided to keep it to herself. They bumped into Izuku. Kaminari and Kirishima were having a discussion on the couch. Bakugo was seen going into the kitchen wearing a loose black tank top. Ajiro was stretching while talking to Mineta. Other voices could be heard coming from the kitchen. Oh, hi Luffy, I didn't expect to see you here. Midoriya said carefully. He was wearing gym clothes, so he was probably going out early for a run. The boys waved them a brief hello. Hi Greenie, Luffy said as he got up close and personal with Izuku. He grabbed his face and started playing with it. I missed this. What's happening right now? Izuku said with a muffled voice and completely bewildered. He expected Luffy to not even glance at him or maybe to just walk right by him. He totally didn't expect Luffy to start stretching out his face. What Luffy was talking about was friends, hanging out with friends, playing around. He was pretty lucky Izuku was the one who greeted them. I don't think Bakugo would have had the same reaction as him. Stop it. Momo said sharply as she slapped Luffy's hands away. Feeling embarrassed on Luffy's behalf. Sorry about that, Midoriya. Good morning, Momo said as she slapped his hand again and this time kept them there forcefully after Luffy tried to touch his hands again. Izuku took a couple of steps back. It's no problem, Izuku said sheepishly. He didn't expect to get a face massage the first thing in the morning, but hey, expect the unexpected, right? So, I'm guessing Luff. I'm gonna become the king of the pirates, Luffy yelled at the top of his lungs after taking a breath of fresh air. This stopped every conversation going on and made everyone, even the ones from the kitchen, pop their heads to take a look at Luffy. Mineta was hiding behind a Jiro. Momo turned to Luffy with a mix between shock, embarrassment and happiness. Well, that felt good to get off my chest. I wonder what's in the fridge. I'm starving, Luffy said it like he didn't just wake up everyone in the dorm and the nearby buildings. He started walking towards the kitchen when Momo suddenly stopped him. What was that? You can't just scream that at 6 in the morning, Momo reprimanded Luffy as she grabbed him by the face. Momo's face right now reminded Luffy of Nami whenever he would wake her up by screaming like a rooster. But I can. Luffy said, his voice muffled by Momo's iron-like grip. This made Momo even more mad. Oh yeah? Try that again, we'll see what happens. Momo said threateningly, which made Luffy sweat drop. I'm gonna go. Izuku said as he slipped past them and ran full speed ahead, scared for his life. I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything. What the hell's the matter with you? Both Momo and Luffy turned to face an enraged Bakugo. Bakugo was acting like he found the guy who killed his family. It's 6 in the goddamn morning, I had shitty sleep, I didn't even have my cup of coffee yet. Haha, sorry. I was just feeling good, Sparkles. Luffy said, finding Bakugo's anger amusing. Soon, he felt a hand gripping his neck and he also felt his eyes wanting to pop out of his skull. You might want to rethink that nickname. Bakugo said with a menacing growl, the same one you would find in a predator ready to devour his prey. I apologize. Luffy said with sweat falling off his forehead, his tongue sticking out. Momo was seen sighing and shaking her head. I have heard screaming voices and I am approaching them rapidly, Iida was heard as he quickly went down the stairs. If you listened closely, you could hear a faint hut with each step. Oh, Iida said, and Iida fell, right at the bottom of the stairs, his not exactly graceful appearance, exposed for the whole dorm to see. With a minuscule blush, Iida rose up, dusted himself off and approached Bakugo, Luffy and Momo robotically. Everybody else just stared dumbfounded, even Bakugo let go of his grip on Luffy. What seems to be the problem? Iida asked, with perfect posture, pose and tone in a very authoritative way, the same way a father would break up a fight between his kids. Don't just ignore that, Momo yelled, which prompted Iida to completely break. I've been found out, Iida said, surprised as if he's just been discovered as a spy infiltrating a secure building. This caused Momo to face palm. It's barely been 5 minutes. Momo mutters to herself. Meanwhile, Luffy was laughing at Iida's over-exaggeration. And what the hell are you laughing at? Huh? Bakugo said with renewed anger as he grabbed Luffy's shirt. But Luffy didn't care, he just kept laughing. Anyway, by the power invested in me by Mr. Ozawa and using the Heights Alliance Rulebook, Chapter 7, page 88, 1st section, 5th paragraph, 2nd colon, any and all disturbances to the public peace within the confines of the dormitory must be reported to a certified individual. What's that? Luffy asked, confused. Did you seriously memorize the entire book? Momo asked, bewildered. She didn't expect him to take his role so seriously. Are you seriously gonna try again? Bakugo asked, even more confused than the other two. With good reason though. Iida's past tries. Mr. Ozawa, I regret to inform you, but Kaminari and Kirishima played a video game in the living room past curfew. This is obviously a violation of the Heights Alliance rulebook, Iida said as he eagerly barged into the teacher lounge. There's a rulebook? Ozawa asked, deadly tired. Suffice to say, first try failed. Sir, I have recently discovered that several female classmates like to gather for sleepovers in Ishido's room. Sleepovers are strictly forbidden in the rulebook, Iida said, hoping this time it'll work. I wish I could get some sleep right now. Ozawa said, and Ozawa did. Second try failed. Sir, I have witnessed Bakugo all, Iida said as soon as he entered the teacher's lounge. Wait, before you continue, I need you to do me a favor. Ozawa said, raising his hand to stop him from speaking. Go to the vending machine and get me a cup of coffee. Of course, sir, no problem, Iida, being the teacher's pet that he is, said excitedly as he left quickly, thinking that he'll finally listen to him this time. The second Iida was out of sight, Ozawa got up, locked the door to the teacher's lounge, grabbed a pair of noise cancellation headphones and got in his sleeping bag, dozing off almost instantly. Wait, Mr. Ozawa didn't specify what kind of coffee. Iida thought with a bad feeling. Of course, there was no specification since Aizawa didn't want any kind of coffee, but that's for Iida to find out. Third try failed, and many others ended similarly to this. Present day. It's never gonna work, moron. Bakugo said with an annoyed sigh. You're gonna have an easier time teaching this idiot calculus than getting that bum to listen to you. How dare you call Mr. Aizawa that, but Iida was unrelenting in his quest to get Aizawa to listen to him. In truth, Aizawa has no problems disciplining his students, but what he does have a problem with is extra work, a big no-no for him. So, unless it suits Aizawa, Iida is going to keep running to the teacher's lounge for nothing. My morning's completely ruined now. Bakugo was heard muttering as he stomped off to the kitchen. Class president, may I ask what sparked this sudden outburst? Iida asked, a little more subdued than before. Luffy had already finished laughing and now was just standing there with a smile on his face. Momo, with a little less annoyed look than before, was next to him. It's nothing, it's just that I'm back, Luffy said with a fist in the air. Pirate Captain Straw Hat Luffy is back in action. Iida looked at Momo with an eyebrow raised. She just simply smiled and nodded. That's good to hear then. Iida said with a thumbs up. Now then, shall we head to the kitchen? While Momo, Luffy, Iida and Bakugo's interaction happened, several conversations were also happening. Kaminari and Kirishima. What was that? Kaminari said, a little bewildered. I'll tell you what that was, it was the sound of our rep coming back. Hell yeah, Kirishima said happily. You think so? Kaminari said. His grin appeared as his bewildered one left. He was getting entertained by Luffy's and Momo's antics. I know so. Kirishima said, happy. I don't think this dorm will survive if that's the case. Kaminari said with a scared expression. Well, I know I will. Anyway, Super Smash Heroes 6 is coming out and they got back to their old conversation. Mineta and Ejiro. Damn, Mineta said with eyes full of fear, still clinging to Ejiro's legs. What's wrong with you? Ejiro said while trying to shake Mineta off his leg. Get off. No, do you understand what this means? Mineta asked, stiff as a stick. That the rep is getting better? Ejiro asked with an annoyed look in his eyes. No, it means that I'll become the NR. One choice for teasing again, Mineta said with a tremble. Maybe if you stopped being such a perv, you wouldn't be bullied as much. Ejiro said with a grunt as he finally managed to throw the stiff Mineta away like a ball. Also, how's that any different from before? Oh, you don't get it. I've enjoyed a life of peace this last month or so. Since the rep was in his funk, nobody really said anything mean to me, even Bakugo kept his blows to a minimum. Mineta said as he curled into a ball and started rocking back and forth. But now everything changes. Andriuha, looking at the sad and pitiful form of Mineta, felt genuine sadness in his heroic heart. On the plus side, Yaoyorozu doesn't have to babysit him anymore. I can't wait to see her around in the mornings, Mineta said in a creepy tone, with the slightest hints of drool coming out of his mouth right now. I don't think I've seen her in pajamas yet. See dude, that's the problem. If you're not gonna fix it, then only God will be able to help you. Ejiro said with a sharp edge to his tone as he left for the bathroom. Can't believe I even felt sorry. The kitchen group. Aojiro winced as she covered her ears. She follows Mina, Echako, Hagakure and Tsuyu to witness the whole incident. Damn it, it's way too early for this and my earlobes haven't been calibrated yet. You have to calibrate your ears. Ribbit? Tsuyu asked curiously. Not really, they do it by themselves, it just takes a while in the mornings. Akjiro winces again when Bakugo starts screaming. What the hell's their problem? She asks through gritted teeth. Guys, check it. I know what's happening, Mina said very happily as she was barely able to stay in place. My girl Momo did it. Wahoo. Did what? Echako asked as she looked back at her. She finally managed to get Luffy out of his depressed mood. Let's go, that's my girl, Mina said very excitedly. In truth, she was more happy that her advice worked than anything. High five. Hagakure was the one who met her high five. So, Luffy's back. Like actually back. The mornings are gonna get a lot crazier. Echako said, giggling behind her hand at Iida's fall. And louder. Tsuyu added. I'm buying ear mufflers. Jiro was already on her phone ordering it. Back with Luffy. So, does this mean you will be going to classes again? Iida said as they started to go to the kitchen. Yeah, I can't wait to see Sunglasses and everyone else again. Luffy said, excited. That's good. Mr. Aizawa has been mentioning a special training exercise, so I think you might have come back at the perfect time. Iida said. Momo also said the same thing. I can't wait, Luffy said eagerly. We'll see soon enough. Momo added. After that, the trio chatted with the rest of the class. Luffy was eating as if he hadn't eaten for a whole year, which left everyone stunned. Momo and Luffy left for their workout routine, not participating in any others, much to Mina's pleas. Momo decided that it would be best to start off slow and easy, since Luffy had just recently come back, and Luffy simply followed Momo. Aizawa's lesson. First of all, I would like to welcome back the class representative from his leave of absence. I assume that everything is in order now. As always said after class started. He addressed Luffy. I'm a-okay ready to hit the books better than ever, Luffy said with a fist in the air, his straw hat dangling from his neck. Says the guy that was asleep at every single lesson till now. Kaminari and many others thought with a sigh. That's good to hear, I trust that this incident will not happen again. As always said with a serious tone, Luffy nodded. Good. Now, I believe I've mentioned this already, but your main focus this summer is obtaining additional hero licenses. Yes sir, most of the kids in the class said. Do not take this lightly, a hero license means you'll be responsible for human lives, you can imagine the exam to receive one is very difficult. Only 50% of students pass the test required for these permits each year. As always said from the front of the class. Is it that hard to get a provisional license? Mineta asked, more scared than anything else. In order to prepare, today you'll concentrate on creating something new. As always said and right on cue, 3 pro heroes entered the class. It was midnight, Ectoplasm and Cement entered, the former striking a pose while the latter entered normally. 2 ultimate moves. An exam is a normal school thing, Mina and Kaminari said excitedly. But this is total hero work, Zero and Kirishima said equally or even more excitedly. Most of the class was pretty excited for this new training arc of their lives. Izuku was nervous but still excited, Todoroki and Momo were acting pretty nonchalant, but deep down they were also excited. Bakugo looks like he already has something in mind. Luffy was with the rest of the class, excited as all hell. When we say ultimate we mean a move that will guarantee you win a fight. Ectoplasm said to the class, quickly quieting them down with his creepy voice. An action so unique to your identity that no other hero can hope to copy it. Cement wisely added. Simply put, you must learn to lean into your strength. Your moves represent who you are. These days, most pro heroes have an ultimate one, those who don't are fools. Midnight added with a seducing voice. This may sound abstract, but we will explain more as the day goes on. For now change into your costume and meet in Gym Gamma. As always said as he ended the lesson. Everyone was quick to change. Gym Gamma. Gym Gamma, also known at the Academy the Training Dining Land or TTL. As always said as they entered what was pretty much a huge warehouse with giant windows for natural light. First the USJ. Now this. Izuku, Achako and Mina thought with a dumbfounded expression on their faces. This facility was my idea, we can prepare unique terrains and obstacles for each student here. Cement said while demonstrating his quirk in action. Here you will learn to serve up justice, hence the name. That's pretty cool. Kaminari thought out loud. Please allow me a question, Iida said with his hand raised. What's the advantage of having an ultimate move at the provisional exam? May we know your reasoning? Iida asked the teachers vigorously. That's 2 questions. Calm down. As always said to the trembling Iida. The job of a hero is to save as many civilians as possible from all kinds of disasters, natural or man-made. Of course the licensing exam analyzes how well you're able to deal with such things. It won't be just fighting, your ability to gather information and make quick decisions will be judged, in addition to how well you communicate, cooperate and read others. Every year a new test is used to evaluate these qualities. One thing is especially important. Midnight jumped in. If you want to be a pro hero you must be able to prevail in battle, if you're prepared you won't have to worry. And those of you with an ultimate move will have stronger results. Your circumstances should not dictate the outcome of your future battles. Learn to be consistent and you'll be a great asset to the front lines. Cement added. Your ultimate move doesn't necessarily have to be an attack, take Luffy's gears for example. He is able to increase his speed, his size, his strength and fly. These are all invaluable abilities to have in a crisis. Ectoplasm praised lectured. Way to go man, Kirishima complimented Luffy with a pat on the back. You didn't have to say all that. Luffy said with rosy cheeks, obviously feeling happy from the compliment. So it's kinda like a secret weapon, something to give us an edge in a fight. Zero half said, half asked. Now there's a smart boy. Midnight said with a wink. For example, the way Kamui Woods is able to imprison all of his opponents in an instant, that's exactly what we want to see. The training camp was interrupted, but the practice you did get in to refine your quirks was part of the process to develop these moves as well. Now that you're caught up you'll be working hard to develop these special moves for the next 10 days or so. While Izawa was saying this, every student was in awe as Cement made several ridiculously big pillars of concrete and Ectoplasm created a dozen or so clones. This is how you'll be spending the remainder of your summer vacation. Prepare for intensive training, in addition you should think about how you can improve your costumes, especially now since you have a better understanding of your quirks. As always said as the 2 teachers finished their training platforms. I expect each of you to go plus ultra, do you have it in you? Yes sir, most of the class responded with a determined look on their face. I'm so charged up for this, Kaminari said excitedly. Now, before we begin I'd like to ask the class rep something. Aizawa said, stopping the kids in their tracks. Me? Luffy asked with a dumbfounded expression. Yeah, you. Since you have, what is it? 5 gears in total. Aizawa asked after the other teachers went out of eavesdropping range. Luffy nodded. I'm going to ask you to oversee some other students again, see how their training for ultimate moves is going, and give some advice along the way. Of course, you can decline and work on Gear 6 but since you were able to beat him and a bunch of other villains, I don't think more power and technique is a top priority for you right now. The rep's training again. No please I beg you anything, but that Mina pleaded as she fell on her knees. Well, this is how I die, better call my parents and write my will. Jiro and Kaminari said with a crestfallen expression. Training with Luffy again? I don't know about that one Mr. Aizawa. Even Kirishima's manly behavior was breaking. Finally I was waiting for a chance to get a rematch with Rubber Boy again, Bakugo said with tiny explosions coming out of his hands again. Huh? What's that? All Might's calling me? I better go see what he wants, Mineta said as he started running full speed ahead to the exit. Unfortunately for him, he was stopped by Aizawa's scarf. Ah, crap. Most of the students were either on the with their souls leaving their bodies, guys like Izuku, Achako, Kaminari, etc. or protesting to Aizawa. Even Todoroki was sweating a bit through his cool demeanor. The only ones who were excited were Bakugo, Iida and Momo. Quiet down everyone. Aizawa said with a tone of authority and activating his quirk to get everyone's attention. As I said before, this is only a training exercise, there will be no sparring, and if anybody gets hurt, I will intervene before that happens. Liar, you also said that in the training camp, Hagakure said while pointing her invisible finger at him. Nobody's hurt now, right? Aizawa said, he isn't wrong. Just because we didn't break an arm or something doesn't mean we weren't hurt, Hagakure continued to protest. Yeah, many others backed her up. Thought so, what do you say, Luffy? Aizawa asked Luffy, who looked pretty neutral, all things considered. Don't ignore us, most of the class yelled. The Luffy, he didn't really care which one he picked, he could go for either. It was true that he didn't need Gear 6, but that didn't mean he wouldn't need it in the future. Before he answered, he looked over at Momo. Momo did want to train and spar with Luffy, so she gave him a nod, which was all Luffy needed. I'll do it, Luffy answered with a smile. Good. Aizawa said. Ooh, most of the class screamed in future agony. Calm down and get to work. Aizawa said as he stepped to the sidelines to let the kids do their own thing. Most of the kids ran off to the farthest pillars they could find, leaving behind a cloud of dust. The ones left were Luffy, Momo, Bakugo, and Iida. Oh man, everyone left so fast. Luffy said, wondering why they didn't want to spar with him. It's you and me, Rubber Boy, let's go, it's time for round 2. Bakugo said as he menacingly approached Luffy. Luffy, I would like to ask you to teach me more on the technique shave. Iida revealed his reason for staying. Luffy didn't choose either, instead he opted to look at Momo for guidance. Actually, before you start training with them, I'd like to at least discuss your quirk and see what you can do. Ectoplasm's clone seemingly appearing out of nowhere. Sure, but Luffy said while moving his eyes towards Momo, silently asking what should I do? You should do what the teacher says, Lou, we still have plenty of time. Momo says with a slight sigh. She is right, you should always do what the teacher tells you, of course, Iida added, which made Bakugo's eyebrow twitch in irritation. DSK surrounded by a bunch of nerds. Bakugo mutters low enough so that he isn't heard. Well, alright. Go ahead, teach, Luffy says to the clone. The clone chooses the nearest pillar and they both climb on it. Momo, Iida and Bakugo opt to do the same. Alrighty clone, what now? Luffy says as he does some basic stretches. Sounds of explosions, electricity and pain reverberate throughout the warehouse. In a word, destruction. Tell me a little about your quirk and what you can do with it. Basic information goes a long way in creating an ultimate move. Ectoplasm says. What's a quirk? Oh, you mean that thing. Okay, sure. I can stretch, bend. My gears make me really fast or really big or really strong or really free. Luffy says as he enumerates on each finger. That's about it. Well, that's something. But I think I remember you demonstrating some of those abilities at the tournament. Ectoplasm says, Luffy's descriptions not being all that useful. He gets into a defensive stance. Show me your second gear. Okay, gear second, Luffy says as he puts a fist to the ground and supports his other arm on his leg. Pools of blood start to pump in his entire body, making his skin color pink with steam coming out of him. That's an interesting technique, show me what you got. Ectoplasm says as he charges at Luffy. Gomu Gomu no jet pistol, Luffy says, and not even a tenth of a second later, a fist-shaped hole appeared in Ectoplasm. It happened so fast that not even a slow-motion camera could pick up what happened. Soon, the pro hero disintegrated into a pile of goo and another one took its place. Luffy already out of second gear. Thought so, did I do good? Luffy says to the pro hero, and ectoplasm is pretty lucky that his face complexion doesn't allow him to leave him with an open mouth. Truthfully, I didn't agree with Aizawa's decision to have him teach other students, but maybe what other choice do we have? I don't even know what happened, much less try to teach him something new. Ectoplasm was having an internal crisis about this beast of a student. Yeah, it was pretty good. Now, why don't you go aid another classmate? Alright. Yeah thanks, teach, Luffy says, more than happily as he swings across to somebody else's pillar. What a monster. Ectoplasm says as he watches him swing across pillars without a care in the world. Momo. What? Lu. What happened? Are you already done? Momo yelped in surprise, not thinking that Luffy would be done so fast. Yep, he just said that I can go to whoever I wanted. So I came here. Luffy said as he pointed at the clone supervising Momo. I see. Well, if you're here and all, might as well see what I'm trying to do. Momo said as she sucked in a deep breath and forced 2 metal poles out of her arms. She gasped for air as the meat poles hit the ground with a thud. So, what do you think? Cool, you used your power. Luffy said it as if he just watched Momo use it for the first time. That's it? Momo asked with a hint of irritation. Those are some good poles. Luffy said while trying to think of an answer Momo would like. No, I use my quirk to make 2 metal poles at the same time, that's my special move. That's what I've been training for. Momo said, a little annoyed that she had to spoon feed him the answer. Oh, that's it? Luffy said as he tilted his head in confusion. What do you mean that's it? This is a big deal, I'd have you know, Momo said, her irritation growing with each sentence out of Luffy's mouth. Well, I mean, is it? Luffy asked with a confused face. Whoa, Luffy yelped in surprise as he was forced to dodge Momo's attack with a metal pole of the ground. Wait, he dodged a couple more hits. No fighting between students, Ectoplasm said with an authoritative voice which made Momo come back to her senses. Momo, how about this? You tell me what I said wrong and I'll say what you want me to say, okay? Luffy said, desperately wanting to know what made Momo so mad. Momo, with a resigned TSK, threw the metal pole on the ground. She went to a part of the platform that made for a perfect seat and sat on it. Truthfully, she wasn't mad at Luffy. She was more mad at herself for only coming up with that, admittedly, pretty lame technique after months of training. Luffy was just her outlet for her anger, which she knew he didn't deserve. Sorry about that, okay? It's just what would you do if you were me? Momo asked Luffy as she hung her head in shame. If I were you? I'd probably find a way to turn myself into a guy again. Not that I meant, if you had my quirk, what would you do differently? Momo stopped Luffy before he said anything too crazy. How should I know? Luffy said with a slight laugh. I don't know, you'll figure it out when you need to. That doesn't really help me. Momo says with a disappointed expression as she looks up at Luffy. Okay, what if? Hear me out, when you make something you can like make another arm, and then, when you go to punch somebody you can like bam wham punch him twice. Luffy crazy antics were brought to a stop when he heard Momo's laugh. What are you even talking about? Momo said through fits of giggles. She slowly stood up. No listen, it makes sense if you think about it. Luffy persisted with a happy demeanor. Sure. If you say so. Momo said as she patted him on his shoulder. Why don't you go and help some other classmate, okay? I'll try on my own from here. Oh, you sure? Luffy said, a tad bit disappointed. Yeah. Just go, you clown. Momo said as she approached Ectoplasm, ready to make something new. Okay. Luffy said before lingering for a couple more seconds and then jumping off the pillar. Thanks for the laugh, Lu. Momo thought as a smile forms on her face. I'm ready to continue. Very well. Ectoplasm says as they both get ready to carry on with their lessons. As Luffy, WNT from person to person, most of their encounters went something like this. What do you think I should do? How should I know? Then why are you here? I don't know. And then Luffy would leave. There were encounters where something else would happen, like Bakugo for example. Bakugo? Hey spar, I mean boom boy. Luffy landed near Bakugo after he unleashed a huge explosion on a clone. Oh? You're here for a rematch? Bakugo said with a feral grin and slight pants. Do you really want a rematch? I don't really feel like hurting you. Luffy said with a sympathetic tone, but Bakugo took it as pity. Shut up, don't decide the outcome by yourself, Bakugo angrily said as he got up close to Luffy. If I don't fight you, how else am I supposed to get stronger? I don't know, by fighting other guys. Luffy said as he backed up. Nah. I wanna fight the real deal. Bakugo said, which made Luffy sigh. He really didn't feel like hurting any of his friends. Fine. Luffy said looking downcast, before an idea popped in his head which uplifted his spirits. I guess we'll fight. What's wrong with you? Why did you say it like that? Bakugo said as he distanced himself, ready for a battle. Nothing, let's just fight. Luffy said as he stood his ground, taking up no stance and leaving himself completely full of openings. I got no problem with that, Bakugo said as he took a stance. They were both pretty close to each other, about 10 steps away. Let's do this before that moron realizes his clone is gone. Bring it on, Luffy said, and thus started the match. But calling it a match wouldn't be exactly right because the second Bakugo started sprinting towards Luffy, he just knocked him out with some Conqueror's Haki. Bakugo, being way weaker than Luffy, didn't really stand a chance, he clinged onto conscience, but it didn't last long. Right before passing out he heard Luffy say, "If you really wanna fight me, get strong enough so you don't pass out from that. That's when you get a real chance." Aizawa. After half an hour passed, the students were still going hard at their training. Aizawa was also fighting with all his strength against the monster that is sleep deprivation, and he wasn't winning. Thankfully, Luffy came in at the perfect time to offer him a helping hand. "Hey, sunglasses, whatcha doing?" Luffy asked as he landed right beside Aizawa, who snapped back to reality, realizing that he hadn't been paying even a fraction of his attention to the students. "What are you doing?" "I thought I told you to help the students," Aizawa said with a yawn. "I tried to, but I don't know how to help them. Their power is just too different from mine," Luffy said, looking unserious. "I mean, I guess I helped Iida and Bakugo." "Ugh, no, it's my fault. Should've known you were too dumb to actually do anything," Aizawa said, annoying Luffy. "Hey, I just don't know what to do with you," Aizawa said, not looking bothered by the fact that Luffy is offended. "You could start by being nicer," Luffy said with a HMMP. After that, they both fell in a comfortable silence as they watched over Class 1A. Until Aizawa started speaking. "What happened? Huh? You're looking pretty cheerful nowadays, compared to a week ago at least." "Oh, you mean that? Nothing special, Momo just saved me." "And how did she do that?" "She reminded me why I'm a pirate. This place made me lose sight of that." "She did that?" "Yep, I owe her my life for that." "Really? Your life? Don't you think that's a bit much? If somebody stops you from killing yourself, doesn't that mean you owe them your life?" "I thought you said she saved you." "I don't really see the difference. I just know that I wouldn't be here without her." "I see," Aizawa said, closing the discussion, a little taken aback by the way Luffy was talking. "I guess it runs deeper than I thought. I am here on my day off." All Might suddenly appearing at the doorway, buffing up for a second then going back to normal. He was wearing casual clothes with his hand bandaged up. "Sup All Might?" Luffy greeted the hero with a smile on his face. "Oh, young Luffy, I didn't expect to see you here, I thought you would be training," All Might said as he got closer to Aizawa and Luffy. "Well, I tried but," Luffy said, but was interrupted. "Don't you think he's strong enough?" Aizawa said, thinking about the all-for-one incident. "Haha, I guess you're right," All Might said before going over to the students, visiting them one by one and offering pretty good advice. "When did he start being a good teacher?" Aizawa was surprised by All Might's newfound talents. That was until he saw the Teaching for Dummies book in his back pocket. "Seriously? Huh?" Luffy said, surprised. "Oh, nothing. Don't worry about it," Aizawa said and continued to watch the students alone as Luffy fell asleep shortly after All Might left. And so the days progressed, Luffy mostly sleeping at the ultimate moves lesson, occasionally helping out a student here and there. 4 days later. Gamma. "Hey Aizawa, young Luffy, how's it going?" All Might said as the students practiced their newly formed and crude ultimate moves. "Hey All Might. What's up?" Aizawa and a half-sleeping Luffy responded. "Abyssal black body." They heard Tokuyami say as his shadow covered the upper part of his body. "Good, but isn't that too hard to say?" Midnight said as she supervised him. "You should be able to say it loud and clear." "Got it." Tokuyami's shadow responded. "Some of them have finally solidified their fighting styles," Aizawa commented before turning to Bakugo. "And there are those who are already putting together special moves." AP shot Bakugo yelled as he shot a highly concentrated blast from his hand, which put a small and direct hole in a mini concrete wall. "Haha, I did it, take that, you rubber idiot." "Ha. Somebody call me," Luffy said as he struggled to stay asleep after so many distractions. Well, that and his spidey sense going off the rails. "No wonder young Bakugo is doing well," as usual All Might said before getting interrupted. "Move." All Might heard Luffy scream. "Hey, watch out," Bakugo yelled. Aizawa was also getting his scarf out to move him out of the way. Turns out, a part of the wall destroyed by Bakugo was heading straight towards All Might's skull. Now, Luffy was about to hop into action and protect All Might, but with a quick look into the future, he realized he didn't need to. Smash! All Might looked up with a proud grin as Izuku destroyed that piece of concrete with his legs. Everyone was shocked by his sudden appearance. "Wow, that was awesome," Greeny Luffy said in excitement, bobbing his head up and down. Izuku landed with steam coming out of shoes and electricity out of his body. "Ah, so that's why you were asking me about kicking and stuff. Well, it's pretty embarrassing to say, but I want a style of my own, you know," Izuku said with a nervous laughter as he deactivated full cowling. "If you really want to know how to kick, you should talk to Sanji, he's the best kicker I've ever seen." Luffy said with a smile as he patted Izuku on the back. Maybe, one day. Izuku had no intention of talking to anyone related to Luffy. He's barely able to manage Luffy, he can't even imagine what his friends are like. That was super dope, Midoriya Kaminari said as he came running with Kirishima. I always thought you were more of a puncher. Kirishima added. I am, or I was. Izuku said as he pointed to his new leg armor. It's these new soles, Hatsum suggested, and I think they'll really up my game. Plus Iida has been teaching me some moves so my overall style changed. Izuku said. I just figured out what direction I want to go in and I still have a lot of work to do. Picking's pretty cool, right? Although I'm more of a puncher, Luffy said as he half-heartedly punched Izuku. Yeah, I think punching suits you better. Izuku said as he rubbed the spot where Luffy punched him. But I'm nowhere near an ultimate move yet. I don't know about that. I'd say you're further along than you think. You should be ready for this test. I don't think there's a thing you need to worry about. All Might said, boosting Izuku's motivation a little bit. The one who should be worried about is you, All Might. Aizawa said as he approached him. Yeah, I know. All Might said, raising a hand to stop Aizawa's worries. Sorry for the scare, young Bakugo. Tsk, you watch yourself, All Might, Bakugo yelled as he disappeared in a cloud of his own explosion. Some might say he looked worried for a second, but Bakugo won't ever say that. This put All Might in his own head for a second, thinking about how weak he's become. You guys made changes to your costume too? Izuku excitedly asked Kirishima and Kaminari. Yeah, I see you've noticed we look pretty awesome, Kaminari proudly responded. You're not the only one with a brand new style, Kirishima said. We've all been making changes here and there. Now's the time to upgrade. I guess the only one who hasn't changed is you, Rep. Oh yeah, I didn't even notice, but your costume is the exact same. Izuku added as he looked at Luffy's hero costume. I thought about putting on some cool toys, but in a fight, these are the only things I need, Luffy said with a smile as he pointed at his arms. Haha, true, I guess you don't really need an upgrade anyway. Kaminari said with a laugh, amused by Luffy's pose. That's enough, Class A, Vlad said as he and Class 1B entered Gym Gamma. Class B is scheduled to use this training area every afternoon. Class B? Izuku said in surprise. Oh, hey guys, Luffy said, saluting their sister class. Yeep, it's the monster, Monomoa yeeped in fear as he hid behind Kendo. She tried to nudge him away, but was, admittedly, also dealing with a little bit of fear due to the monster of Class 1A. Luffy tilted his head in confusion. Eraser, get your kids out of our way. Vlad commanded. You're not trying to kick us off early when we have 10 whole minutes left, are you? Aizawa said in retort. You didn't forget that our exam is first, right? First? Kaminari asked. Yeah, Class A won't be fighting Class B. We each have our own test in different areas and months. Aizawa responded. Kendo and Monomo let out a sigh of relief. There are 2 exam dates, in June and in September, and the tests are held in 3 different places. We don't want students from the same school fighting each other. Vlad added. So, our school is not the only one attending? Kirishima half-asked, half-stated. Yes, and not only that, we're taking the test way earlier than the other schools. Izuku said, with a determined look on his face. That's true, very few first years try in the provisional licenses. In other words, the test will be made out of students who trained harder than you with quirks you don't know about, ones that are powerful. Aizawa said, which only added to the students' fears. The actual content of the exam is a mystery, but you can expect that you're going to have a rough time, try not to get too hung up about that. Yes sir, most of the students present said. It's no worries for us, sunglasses. Luffy said as he hung his arm around Izuku. We'll go there. Kick the exam's ass and be back with our trophy. You do know that this exam is to get a license to do hero work, right? Aizawa asked, even though he knew the answer. Hero work? I thought we were going to go to an all-you-can-eat buffet. Luffy asked, confusion written all across his face. Then why did you think we were gonna get a trophy? Kaminari asked. I don't know. Luffy said, which made everyone sigh. I knew it. Aizawa muttered under his scarf. Provisional licensing exam location. National Dagoba Arena. And before everyone knew it, the exam was already here. Now everybody was standing in front of the huge building with costumes in hand while wearing their school uniform. Great, now I'm getting nervous. Jiro said nervously. I know, right? What a shocker. I wonder what they're gonna make us do. What if I can't get my license? Mineta said as he waddled in one place out of nervousness, his anxiety more apparent than the others. Mineta. Don't ask if you can, say that you will. Aizawa offered a bit of advice while looking dead tired. Yes sir, I so go this, Mineta said, his anxiety betraying his determined demeanor. If you can pass this test, then you novice eggs will hatch into chicks. You'll be semi-pros. Aizawa said as he addressed the whole class. I expect your best. You got it, sunglasses, Luffy cheered as did most of the class. Blue? You've been looking more healthy these days. It's nice sleeping in your own bed, isn't it? Momo said to Luffy. Luffy has been sleeping in the same room with Momo for the past couple weeks now. And after a lot of pushing from Momo, Luffy finally gave in and went back to his own room. Are you sure you don't want to change it? Nah, it'll be like a reminder, you know. Luffy said with a smile. I'm glad. Plus Ultra Momo and most of the other chats were interrupted as a random guy yelled Plus Ultra at the top of his lungs. Todoroki seemed to have remembered something about the new guy. It's pretty rude to barge into other people's huddles like that, Inasa. A guy with purple hair said to Inasa. There was also a girl with longish hair standing next to them. Inasa was a pretty tall dude with a buzz cut and was wearing a cap with an S on it. He also wore a pretty creepy open-mouthed smile. What? Pardon me, Inasa said as he got into an extremely low bow, low enough to touch the ground with his head. I am so extremely sorry. Who is this guy? I do not trust his enthusiasm. Kaminari said with a bead of sweat down his face. The haha Luffy on the other hand was laughing his ass off. He kinda reminds me of Kin. Hey, look at their uniforms. Jiro pointed out their uniforms, which consisted of a white shirt, blue jeans or blue skirts and a cap with an S on it. They're from that famous school on the other side of Japan. Kaminari added. UA in the east, Shiketsu in the west. Bakugo said. Everybody seemed to know this school. Who? Everybody besides Luffy, that is. It's the only other school which rivals UA in terms of hero courses. Shiketsu High. Momo very helpfully added. I see. Which one are we again? Luffy asked, but his question seemed to have fallen on deaf ears. Instead of being hung up on that though, Luffy finally got a real good look at each student from Shiketsu and his gaze fell on one specific girl. I just really wanted to say it once Plus Ultra Nasa very enthusiastically said. See? I really love UA High School. I am extremely honored to compete against such incredible students. I am so looking forward to it. Due to how hard he hit the concrete with his head, a little bit of blood leaked out. And usually a certain person would have commented on it, but it seemed as if she was put in a trance. Was it because she was scared out of her mind? Maybe. But no matter how many times she looked away or hid behind the purple-haired guy, Luffy's stare just didn't seem to leave her. How the hell did he figure it out already? And why did they, out of all the locations, came here where I am? She screamed in her mind while looking pretty calm on the outside. Inasa Yurashi. Aizawa said loud enough for his students to hear. Do you know that guy Mr. Aizawa? Hagakure asked. Indeed, he's strong. Aizawa said, which surprised some of the students. He's the same year as you all and received the greatest score at the recommendation exam, but for some unknown reason, he declined his acceptance and went to Shiketsu. Some students were pretty worried about the guy who's doing non-stop bows right now. I mean, if he's the top scorer, that means he's stronger than Todoroki, right? Is what those students thought. Well, the others. HMMP, big deal. I bet he's not as strong as our freak of a captain. Mineta said, looking proud as if he did something. Ain't that right, Rep? Rep? Mineta asked again, this time some other students noticed. Yeah. I'll take mine medium rare. Luffy offhandedly said, very obviously not listening. Well, he's definitely not as dumb as our captain. Jiro said, mocking Mineta for using the word captain. Anyway, we'll be off. UA High, I wish you the best of luck. Inasa said as their class got ready to leave, with one girl looking more relieved to leave than anything else. Faster, walk faster, she screamed in her mind. Ah, sure, why not? Let's throw some wild cards in the game, Luffy said pretty loudly, which once again stopped all chatter and made Shiketsu's class turn around, with one girl looking more uncomfortable by the second. But I'm warning you, do something like that again, and I won't be as nice as last time. Is that a challenge? Or are you looking down on us? Inasa asked, thinking Luffy was talking to the whole class. Who are you? Luffy asked while getting a good look at him. Why you? Inasa started walking back towards Luffy, a button clearly being hit. But was stopped by the girl. Let's just go, Inasa, we'll settle this in the exam. She said as she prompted the whole class to leave. Well, thinking thank you God, thank you universe, thank you all. What was that, Rep? We don't need any more enemies, Mineta said in complete anguish. It's not like you to act so aggressive. Jiro said, in surprise, as was the rest of the class. What gives? It's just a little competition, what's the harm? Luffy said with a shrug. Momo looked especially worried. What did you mean when you said like last time? That was obvious, Aizawa said, but was interrupted. He felt a shiver up his spine. Hey Aizawa, I'd recognize that scowl anywhere a new heroine popped up. Let's get married. No. Aizawa firmly refused her, seemingly forgetting about Luffy's whole antic. Mina looked heartbroken. Ah, you're a real laugh buddy, the heroine said as she clutched her stomach in laughter. As usual, you're impossible. Aizawa said, looking thoroughly unamused. Joke. Ah, that's Ms. Joke, the smile hero. She has a quirk called Outburst, which forces everyone to laugh uncontrollably. Her fights against villains are always full of insanity, as Zuko excitedly nerded out at the hero. On, imagine it, if we were married you'd have a future full of laughter, Ms. Joke persisted. That sounds like an actual nightmare. As always said in hopes of crushing her dreams, it didn't work. You two look close. Asui pointed out. Our agencies were near each other. As young heroes striving to make a difference in the world, a mutual love bloomed, Ms. Joke said, her head filled with fantasies. No, it didn't. Aizawa quickly shut her down. I do miss your quick retorts, Ms. Joke pointed at Aizawa. You're my favorite person to tease, future husband. So Joke, if you're here then that must mean, Aizawa said. That's right, Ms. Joke said. Over here everyone, this is UA. Oh wow, it really is class A guy who could only be described as dark hair, taller, Deku said. Amazing. I've seen them on TV, a girl with sharp teeth said. Second years from Katsubutsu Academy. This is class 2. Ms. Joke informed. They're my students. Hey, I'm Shindu. Shindu said as he grabbed Izuku's hands, which caught him completely off guard. Looks like UA's had it pretty rough this year, must have been tough. Why yeah. Izuku said, nervously. But even so you're still aiming to become pro heroes despite those hardships, Shindu said as he shook Kaminari's hands. It's wonderful, Shindu said as he shook Jiro's hands next. Heart full of fortitude, I believe that's what everybody in the world needs to have. Shindu said with a smile, looking like glitter was coming out of him. This guy's is too nice. Izuku thought. This charming pretty boy is gonna steal all our girls. Kaminari had his priorities straight. Luffy, uncharacteristically enough, didn't look like he wanted to get along with Shindu. Especially you, Bakugo and Luffy, Shindu said as he extended his hand for a handshake. You guys have an especially strong will, don't you? Luffy wasn't about to handshake, and Bakugo slapped Shindu's hand away before he could. Stop pretending, what you say doesn't match the look in your eyes. Hey man, don't be so rude, Kirishima scolded Bakugo. Sorry, he's just like that. Hey Luffy, mind if I ask for an autograph? The spiky teeth girl asked. You were just so cool at the sports festival. Are you really gonna fangirl here? Her classmate said. I'd be happy to sign something for you. Mineta butted in. Hey, get your costume and head to orientation, there's no time to waste. Aizawa said as he headed in the building, seemingly forgetting about Luffy's stunt from before, either that or he just wrote it off as Luffy being Luffy. Yes sir, the class said as they also headed inwards. Inside the building. Wow, there's a ton of people here. Luffy said as he stood dead center in the crowd full of students. Way more than I thought there'd be. Momo said. By the way Lu, back with Shiketsu High, what did you Maya? Okay, let's do this exam thing. I'm from the Heroes Public Safety Commission, name's Mara. My circadian system is so screwed up. Aw man. Mara said from the podium looking over the students, looking almost as tired as Aizawa in the first period. So, about the content of this licensing thing. Basically, 1540 examinees compete in a free-for-all exercise or whatever we're calling it this year. See, we've got a lot of pros around, and since Dane was arrested, a lot of people expressed doubts about the status of heroes in modern society. But, when you really think about it, getting paid makes sense. If you're going to risk your life to save someone, why shouldn't you get paid? God, I could really use a coffee, Mara said, looking like he's about to fall asleep halfway through his speech. Anyway, whether they are in it for compensation or a sense of duty, we've got too many heroes working in the streets. Basically, we've got way too much quantity and not enough quality. That's why only about 100 of you are gonna pass this exam. There are over 1,500 people taking this test, I thought they said over half of them will pass. Momo worriedly said. That means less than 10% of us will be passing. Asui said, looking worried as well. Oh man, I'm getting way more nervous, Jiro said, hugging herself to calm down. The world's pretty crappy, but we're living in it so we gotta deal with it. Anyway, here are the rules. Mara goes on to say that each person has 3 discs that need to be protected and 6 balls to attack other people with. You have to take out at least 2 people to pass this round. What else? Oh, I guess we gotta hand out these discs and balls, and we'll give you a few minutes to get situated after we open. Open? Todoroki asked and his question was answered. Turns out this room was a box that unboxed open only to reveal a huge arena with different terrains and landscapes. Here there are different terrains that you'll want to avoid, use your quirks well and do your best, or not, I don't care. Mara said as pretty much everybody looked on in horror at the huge arena. Luffy was one of the few that had stars in his eyes instead of fear. Hope you guys liked the reveal, so much sleep was lost over this. Now that everybody was ready, every school dispersed, sticking with the groups they already knew. Blue, you should have your discs more dispersed. You're going to be taken out quickly if you leave them like that, Momo said as she looked at Luffy's discs. They were right next to each other, stuck to his chest, basically screaming for elimination here. What's the point of putting them farther away if I don't plan on getting hit? Luffy said with a confident smile. Also, they're stuck and I don't know how to take them off. Momo and a few others facepalmed. Let's stick together guys, Izuku said to everyone, and everyone agreed. "Yeah right, this isn't a field trip," Bakugo yelled and ran off. "Hey wait up," Kirishima followed after him. "I'm going on my own too." Todoroki also departed. "It's hard for me to use my power when everyone around." "Wait, don't split up," Izuku screamed, but to no avail, they were already too far out. "Okay," almost everyone agreed. "I don't think it was a good idea for them to split up," Izuku said as everyone started running to a safer position. "How come?" Mineta asked. They were headed towards the pillars made out of dirt, thinking to get the high ground. "Think about it, they already know about all of our powers from the sports festival," Izuku said. "I see." Iida said in epiphany. "That means they already have strategies against us and know our weaknesses." Momo added. "Oh no, that's bad." And several comments like these were made, bringing down most of the class, emotionally speaking at least. "So what?" Luffy asked, not really understanding the problem. "What do you mean, Rep?" Kaminari asked. "I mean, all we have to do is hit their disc thingies with our balls, right?" Luffy pointed out the obvious. "So it doesn't matter if they know, as long we take them out first." "That's actually not a bad way to look at it," Izuku said as they arrived at the pillars. "They're here," Luffy said as he stopped a ball from hitting Izuku's disc, being only inches away from hitting it. "Whoa," Izuku said in surprise. Soon after, dozens of students jump out from their hiding place, catching Class 1 in an ambush. "I saw your quirk on TV," Shindu said, being at the front of the ambush and also being the one that threw that ball. "You can't use it without destroying your body. Well, shouldn't I take advantage of that?" A storm of balls were raining down Class 1A. Well, most of Class 1A besides one certain straw-hatted individual. He, using his quirk, jumped higher than the guys from the ambush, taking some of them by surprise and using the ball that Shindu threw. "Take this, Fakey Gomu Gomu no bullet." He threw that ball so hard that it hit the disc on Shindu's chest, cracked one of his ribs and knocked the wind out of him. As everybody was running away or defending from the onslaught of balls raining down on them, Luffy was casually walking towards Shindu, who was on the ground, trying to crawl away from the menacing Straw Hat Pirate. Multiple balls were thrown at Luffy, but he just dodged with ease. Shindu shortly arrived at a dead end and tried to stand up, but the pain and the lack of air in his lungs made it pretty difficult. Luffy on the other hand, took out a spare ball he had and gently touched Shindu's other two discs, disqualifying him instantly. "Well, that was easy." "Bye now, Fakey," Luffy said with a disappointed tone as he ran towards his classmates. Shindu was left behind, looking completely and utterly defeated. Chapter 23. License Exam. Luffy was seen running. Where? I don't know. Luffy doesn't know, not even God knows. Luffy just knows that about one crapload of balls were headed straight to him. Now, any normal person in Luffy's sandals would try to use some conqueror's hockey, knock out everybody nearby, and score some easy points. But we all know Luffy doesn't fit the description of a normal person. The only thoughts in this entity's mind right now are, "I wonder where Momo is. And I wonder where that blood girl is." Thankfully for him, he's going to get the answer to one of those questions very soon. The Uraraka Zero signaled for Ichako to come out of hiding and jump the blood girl, as Luffy would put it. Ichako was seen popping out from behind Zero with a battle-ready frown. "Release," she yelled as she fell and attacked the fully naked girl, with clay covering her private parts. Ichako went in for the punch, but Toga, still disguised as the Shiketsu girl, dodged. "Damn, what reflexes. Oh man, and here things were just getting good," Toga said as she squatted down on the broken terrain, looking rather proud of herself. "I really." "Oh, hey, it's you," Luffy said nonchalantly, as if he weren't the nightmare to her sleep. Toga would have given herself whiplash with the way she spun her head around to see him. Luffy, Rep, Izuku, Ichako, and Zero exclaimed happily upon noticing him. They all appeared healthy, albeit a little tired from overusing their quirks to protect themselves from the balls. Only Izuku had a small cut under his right eye. Well, this has been fun, kiddos, but it's time for me to leave," Toga said, fear clear in her voice as she kicked up a quick dust cloud and left the kiddos alone. "Aw, man, we should go after her," Zero said as she simply vanished from their sight. Luffy looked around, stretching his neck high, with one hand shielding his eyes from the sun, even though his hat already provided shade. "Don't go after her, it might have been her quirk, but she wasn't wearing her targets, it's not worth it," Izuku gave a quick explanation, and he thought everybody listened. Keyword here being thought. "I see her," they heard Luffy's voice from above. "I'll chase her down." Before they could even respond, he had already vanished, leaving only an exclamation of, "You go get her," and a warning of, "Don't." Toga's point of view. The chase ended sooner than Toga would have liked. For the record, she wishes it could have been endless. Despite suppressing her presence, she couldn't exactly turn invisible. Soon, she reached the city section of the vast exam arena and made a quick left, darting into an alleyway. Using a wall for support, she panted from non-stop running and the use of her presence eraser. After regaining control of her breathing, she cautiously peered over the wall, hoping to see Luffy looking lost. "What you looking at?" Toga felt Luffy's words right beside her ear. Aya completely jumped scared and triggering her fight or flight response, she ended up slapping Luffy across the face. The most unsettling part for Toga wasn't just the fact that Luffy had practically cornered her in an alley, or that his neck was stretching to an ungodly length to the point where she has no idea where his body is. It was the fact that after slapping Luffy, his head didn't even move. He simply stood there and she slowly removed her palm from his iron jaw. Before she could say anything else, Luffy's body jumped from the fire escape with a hop where he was apparently hidden and came back down to his head. Sorry was the first thing Toga thought to say. Luffy took steps towards her and Toga mirrored this by stepping back, hoping this alley stretched indefinitely. Well, wow, look at the time. I've got to, go back to baby the sit the baby wait, no I meant. She hit the inevitable wall and her heart rate doubled. Luffy's face was unchanging, not mad or happy, just neutral. Which was the last thing Toga needed. How was she supposed to read his face that way? Not knowing what to do, she glanced down, realizing her lack of clothes, and an idea sprung to mind her last ace. With a brave gulp, she took Luffy's arm and started gently caressing it. Well, would you look at these muscles? Are you sure this is flesh and not carbon fiber? It must make all those dumb broads at that fancy school cry from their legs, am I right? Soon, she felt Luffy's arm lift from her hands and move towards her. She tightly closed her eyes and subconsciously clenched her entire body. Welp, this is how it happens. Bye-bye, V-Card, I'm gonna miss you. To her surprise, Luffy didn't reach for the stress balls as she expected. Instead, he went for her neck, pushing her against the wall and lifting her from the ground. Her eyes shot open, coughs barely escaping her mouth, her nails attempting to cut into Luffy's hand which now felt like actual carbon fiber and her legs kicking Luffy repeatedly in the stomach. She barely even noticed that her disguise was melting apart, revealing her actual appearance for the world to see. Seconds felt like hours to her as her life flashed in front of her eyes. All the good, the bad, and the really bad in her life. She experienced instant relief as Luffy released his grasp, causing her to fall with her back scraping against the cement wall. The air felt like a gift from heaven as it rushed into her lungs. Before even being able to understand what just happened, she heard Luffy say, "The only reason you have freedom is because I let you have it." Toga couldn't see his face, as it was shadowed by the sun behind him. The same goes for your little buddies playing villains, I can take it away the same way I'm giving it. Toga stopped coughing and stopped thinking about the pain in her back. Right now, the only thing she was focused on was Luffy and the sheer terror he emanated. Now let me make something clear. I'm a pirate first and a hero second. So, if you hurt any of my friends, I'll probably find you one day and give you the same hurt you gave them, many times over. Luffy said it firmly. After speaking, he squatted near Toga, getting up close and personal. But if you even go anywhere near Momo, I'll hunt you down and crack your head open. Crack. Toga's eyes darted toward the noise. Her gaze landed on Luffy's hand and the shattered rock that seemingly appeared out of nowhere. Soon, gravel began to fall from between his fingers until he opened his hand entirely and the remaining cobblestones fell to the ground right next to her leg. She started hyperventilating. Something like that. Am I clear? Toga heard Luffy ask, but she wasn't in a state of mind to provide him with an answer. Fear completely clouded her thoughts. She continued to hear Luffy saying something, but she was incapable of comprehending his words. That was until she felt a sharp pain on her cheek. It turned out that Luffy had slapped her, bringing her back to reality. I said, am I clear? Luffy asked again. Yes, sir. Toga shakily said, nodding aggressively up and down. Good. Luffy said and got back up, leaving a terrified Toga on the ground with her back against the wall. He started walking out of the alleyway and right before he left, he said, "Don't let me catch you here again." 1. Toga was left all alone in the alley, still processing this core memory that had just developed. While tons of thoughts were popping up in her head, she was able to voice only one. Book. We're so booked. While Toga was contemplating her life choices, Luffy was scanning the area, searching for an easy opportunity to score some points. Oh man, if only there were some guys that nobody cared about and that could earn me some easy points. Fortunately for him, it seemed like fate was on his side. Hey guys, it's that rubber guy from the tournament, that idiot probably lost his classmates. Let's go and score an easy point. A strangely colored man in a strangely colored suit called out to his fellow strangely suit-wearing compatriots. Bingo. Momo's group. So far, 66 people have passed, don't panic, but do consider that your time is almost up. Good luck. Momo and her group, consisting of Shoji, Tsu, and Jiro, were currently positioned high up in an office-like building, surveying from a distance. Shoji was using his quirk to look for nearby classmates, not knowing he had just missed Luffy. Jiro was scanning the building for potential enemies and/or classmates. Tsu was there for emotional support, that's about it, but she's doing a great job. Having any luck, Shoji? Tsu asked, hoping for classmates rather than the opposite. It's no use. I can't see anyone from our class. Shaoji responded. Maybe they're in another area. Tsu said. Most likely. Yaoyorozu, you heard that, right? Less than half the spots remain. Shaoji said, redirecting his attention to Momo. We should probably give up on finding everyone. We need to fight for ourselves and make sure we pass. Tsu added to the conversation. Yes. That would be wisest. Momo came to the conclusion. SHH. I hear 4 people climbing the stairs, 10 floors below. Jiro announced. They're headed up here. Are they planning to attack us? Shaoji asked. I don't understand why there's only 4 of them if that's the case. Jiro responded. Yeah, Momo, can't you use your hockey thing to see what they want? No, unfortunately. My observation hockey isn't on the same level as Luffy's, I'm afraid. Momo said, with a bit of a disappointed look. Maybe they're here to look for refuge. Tsu asked. That can't be it. They don't sound like they are stopping on any of the lower floors. Jiro answered, looking more and more worried as the seconds passed. I'm afraid this could be a distraction, or maybe something worse. Jiro's shriek of pain stopped Momo's further musings. Jiro? Are you okay? Momo and Tsu went for her aid as Shaoji went to check for enemies in Jiro's stead. There's music playing. It's not so bad for me, but hearing it suddenly must have been a huge shock for her. Shaoji said, still hearing the loud rock music. Then it dawned on them all. This was a planned attack. Yes, they knew Jiro's quirk and made a special attack for her. Momo concluded. We're deaf right now and they could attack from any point. Jiro, let me see. Jiro proceeded to remove her headphones and Momo saw a small trail of blood leaking from her ear. It doesn't look like anything too serious, but you should stop using your quirk for now and let us handle the rest. Momo was lying here, this is a very serious issue, but panicking her friends now wouldn't do any good, for now she would have to fight with a man down, or woman in this case. But Jiro's protests to keep fighting were stopped short as the windows suddenly broke. What? Shaoji said alarmingly. With each second, more and more windows broke, not enough to break completely, but enough to cloud them, making them blind. Run for cover, Momo said, and everybody hid behind a pillar. They're trying to blind us. What do we do now? Tsu asked rather calmly, in contrast to this whole situation. Okay, let's analyze what just happened. They know about our quirks and have attacked our weak spots, and I don't think they'll just stop there. I think they're trying to trap us in here. Momo quickly arrived at that conclusion. We have to escape before they trap us completely. Sounds good to me, Jiro said as she moved for the door, but was stopped by Momo before she could even make a step. Huh? You're in their line of sight. Momo said as she pointed at the windows. Before anybody could say anything else, the iron shutter on the windows started to close, leaving them in a dark room. Now we're in the dark. What do we do now? Tsu asked, feeling the temperature getting rather colder than she would have liked. Now? Momo asked rhetorically as she made a few interesting items. Now it's our turn to attack. I like the sound of that, Jiro exclaimed. The group fighting with Momo's group. Sai Academy. Momo Yaoyorozu has a finite ability in how much she can create. We'll deplete her abilities and then all of their quirks will be rendered useless. This is my equation for success, Psycho and Telly contemplated as she sipped on some tea. A second-year student, her quirk is named IQ. When she drinks tea and closes her eyes, her IQ multiplies. She already possesses an IQ of 150, but after a few sips, she becomes a true genius. Also, different kinds of tea have different effects on her abilities. Now use your quirk, Yaoyorozu, it will be the beginning of the end for you and your friends in a not-so-hero-like way, she exclaimed, which definitely impressed her fellow classmates. Now her strategy might have worked if this was a regular, no Luffy in her life Momo. But this one's a little bit different. A heavy thud reverberated through the Saya Academy halls as a sledgehammer broke the locks on the door to Momo's room, which had been locked shut by one of Psycho and Telly's henchwomen. This took Psycho completely off guard, leaving her stunned. Suddenly, a cylinder-like object was thrown out of the hole. Watch out, Psycho realized, but it was too late for her friends. In an instant, the entire room was enveloped in an intense blinding light, powerful enough to blind anyone looking at it for more than half an hour. Psycho, the only one who managed to shield her eyes from the brightness, had the fortune of witnessing Momo kick the door open, with Tsu leaping from behind and managing to catch a good number of the Saya Academy girls. Shaoji arrived slightly later, but quickly enough to apprehend the remaining stunned girls. Hiru came out a couple of seconds later, looking mean as all hell, even though her quirk was useless right now. I'm guessing you were the one who trapped us in there. Momo said it with a proud glare. She was proud that she was able to get herself out. I almost passed out. Tsu said it with a slight shiver in her voice. Now she was using duct tape to apprehend the girls. What are you doing? Psycho yelled while pointing an accusing finger at Tsu. It's flex tape. Tsu simply said. Don't you think you have other concerns right now? Momo menacingly said as she produced a metal bat in her hand. DSK, you used your quirk to attack, not defend. Very high risk. I can't believe UA students would choose such an aggressive strategy. Psycho said, fear evident in her words. Cold sweat started to appear on her forehead. See, now that's the problem. Momo said as she closed the distance between herself and Psycho. This isn't a skill I learned at UA. Give up. Momo said as she rested her metal bat on Psycho's shoulder. You're completely defeated. Psycho still had a look of rebellion and anger in her eyes. Momo thought that things were about to get a little bloody until she saw Psycho raise both her hands up. I'm smart enough to know when I'm defeated. Good call. Momo said as she removed her metal bat from Psycho's shoulder and twirled it in her hands. Soon after, every Saya Academy girl was left up in the office building, with each and every single one of them disqualified. Antirum. Something wrong, yeah Momo? Sue asked as she followed Momo into the room filled with participants who had passed the test. Alongside Momo, Xiaoji also entered the room, while Jiru had to go to the nurse's office. No, I'm just wondering. Momo they heard Luffy very excitedly and very loudly say this across the room, startling a few other students who were just peacefully trying to catch their breath. He ran faster than anybody should run inside a building and stopped right in front of Momo's group, making a small dust cloud in the process. Well, you shouldn't run like that, cough cough. Momo and the others started coughing. Thankfully, it wasn't anything serious. That aside, I'm glad you made it. Yeah, Luffy, it's comforting to see you here. Sue said, relieved that Class 1A's powerhouse made it here. Did you see any of our other classmates? Pyrrice was already here when I got here, Calamari, Spiky Hair, and Boom Boy also just made it, and I'm pretty sure Greeny is nearby. Luffy responded like he was answering an age-old question, with a finger on his chin. Dunno know where the rest are. Aha, we should go and greet them. Xiaoji chimed in. Wanting to see how the other teams did. Yeah, I'd like to know how they managed to pass. Sue spoke Xiaoji's thoughts. Momo nodded in agreement. Yosh, let's go see them. Luffy started walking, and the rest followed. That was until Momo snatched his arm and stopped him. Please, go on ahead. Me and Lu have some things to talk about. Momo informed the group. Luffy didn't look bothered by it. Sue and Xiaoji were confused but didn't complain. No problem. We'll probably be with the rest of our classmates. Sue said this before staring at Luffy. Oh, by the way, Pyrrice should be near the big screen. Luffy finally remembered to tell them. There we go. Sue said, looking unbothered by the weird staring match that just transpired. That was faster than I thought. Xiaoji commented, and Sue seemed inclined to agree, based on her nod. So, what's up, Momo? Luffy asked as they moved to a more secluded area of the room. Not that you can get a lot of privacy in a room filled with students, but still. What happened to the girl from Shiketsu High? Momo asked, knowing it does no good to beat around the bush, especially with Luffy. Oh, you mean that girl? Luffy looked clueless for a moment before recalling putting the fear of God into said girl. Yeah, her. Because I remember you looking specifically at her during your little stunt in front of this building. Also, I don't see her anywhere around here, and since she's in a school of the same caliber as UA, I don't think she got eliminated. So, she's either injured or you kicked her out. Momo unloaded this theory that had been forming in the back of her mind ever since Luffy's stunt. Am I wrong? Wow, you're so smart, Momo, you could become a teacher or something. Luffy said, genuinely impressed. Momo didn't look in a mood for games now, so Luffy quickly quieted down. Look, it's not like I hurt her or anything. At least I hope I didn't. So, you did do something. Momo said as she crossed her arms and shifted her weight on one leg. Who was she? Remember that weird girl with blonde hair who looked like she was going to school? She also really liked it when I had blood on me for some reason. Luffy tried to explain with the help of some gestures, but they didn't help much. No, I don't. Momo responded, she wasn't there for that, she was fighting Nomu. She was growing increasingly worried. Not because she didn't trust Luffy to make a stupid mistake. No, actually, it was because she didn't trust Luffy, and who could blame her? Luffy tends to jump to conclusions too quickly, which could be good in some cases, and terrible in others. She just hopes Luffy didn't make too big of a mistake. Explain. Okay, remember when we went to the middle of the forest and there was a camp and I trained everybody? Luffy asked. Kind of hard to forget. Momo responded, her brows furrowed. There was this girl among the villains, she used knives to cut people up and she liked blood. She can also counter my observation haki. Momo was following along until that last statement. That really surprised her. What? Momo couldn't imagine someone, much less from this world, with a stronger haki than Luffy. Her haki is that strong? Nah, don't think so. At least, I didn't sense an immense amount of haki from her, just the regular amount, maybe a bit more than a regular guy, Luffy said with his thinking face on. Regular amount? What do you mean? Momo quickly got sidetracked. Didn't I explain this? Everybody has haki, animals, plants, every living being. Like how me and you have hockey, the same goes for those guys, Luffy said, pointing to a group of students chatting. The only difference is that ours is way stronger than theirs. Because we trained it. Momo got the picture and got back on track. Okay, so you're saying that the villain from our camp was here? Yep, and I couldn't see her cause she suppressed her presence. I don't know how, but she did. Luffy said, and Momo thought it was concerning. One of her biggest weapons is useless against this villainess, and who knows how many more. It took me a while to recognize her because she looked completely different. But then I pieced it together. She has a power that lets her transform into other people, like Bone-chan. Who? Momo asked while tilting her head. Oh, just an old friend of mine. Luffy looked completely confused. I see. So, what did you do to her? Momo asked, getting to the part she's the most worried about. Nothing too bad, I hope. Ah, nah, I just told her to stay away from our friends, unless she or her villain friends want to get hurt. Luffy said, and Momo breathed out a huge sigh of relief. That's good. Also, I told her I'd crack her head open if she got near you. Luffy said it like he was delivering the morning weather reports. What? Momo didn't believe what she just heard. Yeah, I just really hope I made myself clear. She looked pretty out of it after I shattered the rock in my hand. It seemed Luffy failed to see the look of absolute WTF did I just hear. On Momo's face right now, rather, he seemed pretty proud of himself. Momo, you good? Luffy asked, finally seeing her face. Okay, wait. Let me just process what I just heard. Momo said after taking a huge breath in through her nose and an equally big one out of her mouth. Is there something wrong? Cause if you think the message wasn't clear enough, I can go track her down. Luffy looked like he was about to go do it, even if she said no. Why you just stay? Don't talk for a second. Momo said, and Luffy quietly did as he was told. A couple of seconds passed, and Momo seemed to have gone through the 5 stages of grief. Okay, first things first. You aren't going to go around and crack heads open like they're walnuts, right? Momo's first question centered around Luffy's core, wondering if, how, and why he had changed. Obviously I'm not gonna just kill anybody who comes near you. Luffy seemed almost insulted that Momo thought that of her. Just those who deserve it. Oh god. What have I done? Momo ran her hand down her face. Looks like she got an answer she didn't like. Okay, Lou, I'll make it very very clear right now. You can't, under any circumstances, kill anybody. But, ever. Momo said with an edge so sharp you could cut yourself. Look, I get it, I'm your sister now and I get that you have that brotherly instinct to protect. No, you don't get it, you're not just my sister, you're my only sister and probably my only sibling, as far as I know. Luffy's glare started to pop out. Blue, that's no. And I'm fine with that thought, cause you made me realize and accept it. The least I could do is protect you. It's my duty, as an older brother, to protect my family, Luffy said more angrily and louder than he thought he did. The nearby student saw Momo and Luffy arguing and decided on a wise course of action to avoid them. First of all, I'm the older sibling. Momo didn't realize it in the heat of the argument, but some of Luffy's less civilized accent was spilling into her words, saying it in the same way Luffy would. And I don't need your protection, okay? I didn't train all this time just cause I liked it, you know. Obviously, dummy, I know that better than anyone, but that doesn't mean I can't also protect you. 2 is better than 1, no. Sigh, there's a difference between killing and protecting, Momo said, feeling half of her anger dissipating with that sigh and double the stress coming in. Also, didn't you think about the fact that that warning would have just encouraged the villains? Since they now know I'm a weak spot for you, what are you going to do then? Okay, well, it's not a warning, it's a fact. Luffy received an eye roll for that comment. And that girl looked pretty scared when I left, so I don't think she's going to want to come here. And even if they do, we'll see whose hands are red at the end of the day. You know, you talk a lot about killing, like it's something you do on a regular basis. Momo said it with more of an exhale than a laugh. Killing is hard. Not anybody can do it, and I doubt you can, you're too pure-hearted. I killed before, Luffy interrupted, and Momo had the second bomb of the day dropped on her, this time looking like that blast did more damage than the last. Not with my bare hands, but I did it. And yes. I know that canonically Luffy didn't kill anybody, but I call bullshit on that. I've seen Luffy wreck houses and sink ships with hundreds of people. I think that Oda's just trying to make Luffy as kid-friendly as possible, but not in this fanfic. Here, all gloves are off. What? Yeah, Momo's gonna need a bit of time to process that bit of information. Breeing all of a sudden, a deafening alarm sounded throughout, and it barely pulled Momo out of her stupefied state. What's that for? Luffy said as he looked casually around while every other student started to get agitated and/or excited. Yeah, Momo, Rep Jiru and Izuku yelled as they quickly approached the still stunned Momo and Luffy, who didn't have the happiest expression in the world as he usually does. Brini? Earphones. When did you guys get here? Luffy asked, and before they could answer, they all heard. Villains have performed a large-scale attack spanning all of insert city name here. Since most buildings collapsed, there are many injured. They heard Mera announce it over the speaker. Hey Greenie, what's happening? Luffy calmly asked a distressed Izuku. You weren't listening? Izuku asked rhetorically, hearing Jiro murmur of course he wasn't. Izuku was more surprised at the fact that Luffy hadn't heard any announcements until now. The next test is starting now. We have to save the bystanders. As soon as Jiro was done saying this, the walls of this room started to open up again. Due to the heavily damaged floors, the first responders have unfortunately been delayed for the time being. Until emergency services arrive, the heroes in the area will lead the rescue operations. Your task is to save as many injured as possible. Mera announced. See? Jiro said with a wave of her hand. We've been looking everywhere for you. Tsu said that you guys went to talk, and that didn't really help us, to be honest. Izuku said, and Momo finally looked like she was back on Earth. Ioka? Midoriya? Momo asked them, herself looking confused, but not as confused as Izuku and Jiro were. And with that, begin, Mera said, which made everyone run straight ahead in the now completely demolished exam arena. Just run, Izuku said, and all of them started running to the demolished urban area. Yaoyorozu, did you hear what we have to do? Yes, I know, we have to save the injured people, correct? Momo said as she ran alongside Jiro. She looked like a complete pro right now, not bothered by her earlier conversation. Correct. I think our best bet is to head to the city and use Luffy to find and rescue as many people as possible. Izuku quickly proposed a plan, which everybody agreed on. That's also where the rest of our class is. Understood. Momo said with the rest. By the way, Luffy, this isn't over. We still have a long conversation when we get home. Okay. Luffy didn't need mastery over observation haki to sense that he wasn't going to like that conversation at all. Izuku and Jiro shared a glance with each other, but didn't question it. The fake city. Due to Luffy's haki, they managed to quickly regroup with the rest of the class. Representative Momo, they're coming, guys, Mina shouted as she spotted their arrival. What took y'all so long? It doesn't matter now, what's the situation? Momo asked, subconsciously positioning herself at the forefront of the group. That was when Iida came up to greet them. Most of us are trying to look for injured civilians, while some of us are waiting for the injured to appear. Unfortunately, Bakugo went on by himself again, and Kirishima and Kaminari followed after him again. I see, Momo said as she moved to the middle of the group, immediately grabbing everyone's attention. Some of the students noticed a slight edge in her demeanor and on her face, but now wasn't the time to ask about that. Everybody, gather around. This is what we're going to do. Momo said it loudly and clearly. We will split into groups. Uravidia Chako and Cellophane Zero are going to come with me and look for survivors. Deku will take Straw Hat and Pinky Mina to look for survivors. Ingenia Miida will take Earphone Jack, don't think I need to say who this is. And Tsukiyomi Tokoyami to look for survivors. Propitsu will take Tentacle Shaoji and Todoroki to also look for survivors. If any problems appear, contact me immediately. Momo spoke with steel in her voice as she conjured several walkie-talkies and handed them out to each student. I trust you all to utilize your companions to the best of their abilities. Everybody else who's not in a group will search for survivors individually. If they are in need of assistance, they will contact the other students using the handheld receiver. As she delivered her plan, it seemed as if she had suddenly become the sole ruler of the class. Everyone was looking at her with varying levels of astonishment, ranging from admiration and respect to confusion. Noticing the odd stares her classmates were giving her, she took one look to the left and one to the right, shook her head, and followed with, if somebody has a problem with my plan, they can very well ignore it, but they should not expect any help from me. Am I clear? Yes ma'am, that was awesome, exceptional, I'm turned on. And other various shouts of approval sounded out throughout the group. But then, any survivors will be taken to the special perimeter set up by Shiketsu High. Do not falter, act as soon as you can, but only with a secure plan in mind. Use our hero name, do not be afraid to ask for help from other schools, treat each survivor as you would treat a real one. This exam is made to imitate reality, so we will treat it as such. Was that clear? Momo's words were as hard as iron, and her classmates definitely noticed the change, but this was neither the place nor the time to ask about it. Yes, then go, Momo ordered, and every group, with a little reluctance from some, went in different ways. Izuku, however, was stopped by Momo for a split second, whispering in his ear, she said. Listen, do not let Luffy, under any circumstances, fight or run around. Keep him on a very tight leash. If he tries anything out of the ordinary, contact me immediately. Now, Izuku being Izuku, he never had a girl be that close to him and whisper directly into his ear, much less a girl like Momo, so for the first few seconds he was still dazed, but he managed to understand what Momo was telling him, and that got him worried. In a loud voice, he said, wait, are you? SHHH? Momo silenced him. Are you telling me not to trust Luffy? Why? Izuku asked, quieter this time. Just do what I told you, and everything will be fine. Momo coldly shut him down, and Izuku had no other choice but to obey. They split off, and Momo was sure most of the class saw their little exchange, but there was nothing she could do now, except go through this exam and hope Luffy's not a mass murderer. Izuku's group. What was that all about, Greenie? Luffy asked as they all started running alongside each other. What did Momo tell you? And nothing. Why would she ask me something? There's nothing that we talked about. Izuku lied, obvious to Mina, not so much to Luffy. Well, if you say so. Luffy said, with a hint of doubt in his voice. Izuku heaved a sigh of relief. He can tell from Izuku's aura that something's up, but he's not going to press him for an answer, not here. Well, anyway. By the way, Luffy, can you use your haki to sense any nearby survivors? Izuku asked. Luffy nodded. Oh, is that why Momo put us in these weird trio groups? Mina asked with a no face. Then why am I here? Pound 1. Luffy asked and completely changed directions. Mina and Izuku changed with him. Think about it. Each of us has a job here. Luffy can find people with his special power, and you can use your ability to tear down broken buildings. Every team has someone who can find things and someone who helps out, even if they're not exactly meant for that. And there's usually someone leading the team. Izuku started rambling. Mina was amazed at how fast he figured this out and admired Momo's quick decisions. But I'm not sure where I fit in with all this, Izuku added. Yeah, Mina seemed to agree. Wait, what? Then she actually registered what he said. Well, Pinky helps out with the rubble, and Luffy can search and make the decisions. Izuku said this and failed to notice the Oscar-worthy faces of confusion. What? He noticed them. You know, for someone who's so smart and strong, you have some serious self-esteem issues. Mina said it with a disappointed tone and a shake of her head. What's that supposed to mean? Izuku asked, flustered. She means that you should have some more confidence. Luffy patted him on the back, almost making him trip over and face plant the concrete. We're here, by the way. So give your orders, Captain. Wait, as seriously? Izuku asked in disbelief. Only for the test, though. Haha, you're not my captain. Luffy said with a laugh, as if the idea of him sailing under Izuku's flag was the funniest joke he heard. Mina also laughed. This isn't really helping. My confide. Izuku was interrupted by a middle-aged man in a kid costume. What the hell are you doing? The survivor that was stuck under a giant piece of rubble yelled at the student's antics. The trio didn't even notice him because a conveniently placed piece of rubble was pretty much hiding his entire body, with his arms and legs barely poking out. This is literally the worst day of my life, and you all are laughing. So sorry about that, sir. Let's get you out of the rubble. Izuku said it with multiple bows before turning to his friends. Okay, so, since I'm going to give out the orders. Izuku stopped himself for a second and looked at Luffy and Mina, as if asking if they really were okay with him giving out orders. Mina nodded, and Luffy, after looking at Mina, also nodded. He was not really sure why, but he did. The way that man is trapped, we can't just pull him out. We'll have to remove the piece of rubble that's in front of him and use something as a brace as a support. I'm pretty sure I can melt that piece of concrete and get him out. A small problem is that I'm going to get crushed to death, so maybe not. Mina's plan seemed to fall apart as it came out of her mouth. No, that's actually what I was thinking, but we'll have to use something as support. Izuku said before slowly turning his head to Luffy. Mina's doing the same. Someone. Oh? And who's that? Luffy asked, confused. Hey, Straw Hat, everything good over there? Izuku yelled out as Luffy made his way towards the survivor. Luffy struggled to squeeze through the rubble. Calling it a claustrophob's nightmare would be an understatement. You could have always said no. Actually, maybe you should have. There's probably an easier way anyway. Don't be an idiot. If you're going to make a decision, make sure to stick with it. You can't half-ass it. Luffy yelled back. Hey, dude, what's up? Is that seriously supposed to comfort me? The survivor asked, in complete disbelief. Unfortunately for him, Luffy didn't seem to pay any attention to the man. Can you shut up for a second? Luffy grumbled as he hoisted the couple of tons heavy rubble with one hand. Gradually, he squatted down, essentially lifting the weight of an entire building onto his shoulders. The survivor didn't know what to be more impressed by: the fact that this guy in a straw hat is lifting tons of concrete, or that he's actually going along with this bold plan. A plan only someone with superhuman strength could carry out. Okay, we're good. Wow, it's actually working. Izuku said in disbelief as he watched a hill of rubble shift. Okay, Pinky, it's your turn. I'll say the same thing I said before: if you're scared, you can always say no. Nah, why would I be scared? I trust you boys. Mina asked as she started crawling. Izuku felt his blood pressure rise as Mina disappeared from his sight. Hey, Lou Straw Hat. So, what's the situation? Mina said as she arrived. Quickly adjusting to the darkness. She went from a crawling position to a squatting one, similar to Luffy, and due to the very, very limited space in the rubble, Luffy was one step away from hugging Mina. She spotted the pillar that was trapping the survivor. I'm guessing this is the one. Think so? Luffy said, looking pretty relaxed given the entire situation. Now starts the slow process of dissolving the pillar, while also trying to not cause a massive collapse, killing everyone under the rubble, besides Luffy, and giving Izuku a heart attack. A minute passes, and Mina is starting to sweat a lot of sweat. Luffy, sensing her discomfort, asked. What's wrong? Oh, please, don't speak. I'm struggling to stay conscious here, and I can literally feel your abs digging into my back. Please, just let me concentrate. Mina struggled, finding it tough to sustain and control her quirk for an extended period, worsened by the lack of oxygen. Initially surprised that the survivor remained silent, she figured he probably aimed to let them focus on their tasks. A minute more has passed, and Mina's about 99% done with her task. Just before she finishes, she stops. Mina, completely drenched in sweat and limp in Luffy's body, says. Let me just. Huff, catch my breath. Puff, Luff, I'm almost finished. Once I'm done, you'll probably feel about twice the weight you're feeling now, so I'm just giving you a heads up. Don't worry about me, I'll keep you safe. Mina would have blushed at this if she had the mental capacity. Both of you. Smooth, okay, ready. Mina let one of her thoughts slip. Yep, Luffy said, not looking all that stressed about it. With a single finger, Mina destroyed the remaining pillar. Suddenly, every piece of concrete began to shift, multiple sections started to fall, and she instinctively clung tightly to Luffy, seeking shelter in him. It was like experiencing your home implode around you, yet somehow feeling secure in the chaos. Luffy, hands cladded in haki, did put his back into it this time. He would be lying if he said that it wasn't difficult, but not impossible, at least not for him. A couple of seconds passed, and the rubble started to settle, finding its place again. As the debris settled, Mina opened her eyes and noticed it was still pitch black. Her face felt oddly soft, as if buried in a pillow. It took a moment before she realized the darkness came from being nestled against Luffy's chest, horns and all. Slowly, she released her tight grip on him and moved away. Later that day, she would be seen screaming into her pillows out of sheer embarrassment from this moment. However, in the present situation, the near-death experience took priority over any humiliation she might feel. Everyone alright? Luffy said, looking not too bothered by Mina's face. Yeah, I'm good. Mina said as she took a look around. Wait, where's the old guy? Who are you calling old? I'm still at the prime of my life. A human-shaped boulder started speaking. Slowly, the rock turned back into the middle-aged man from before. My quirk is the only reason I even accepted this job. I didn't think I'd need to use it today, though. But anyway, I'll be taking you out. Mina said as he took a firm hold of the survivor. Luff, what are you gonna do? Don't worry about me, just get out of here. Luffy said, and Mina, unwillingly, did as was told. You better make it out of here alive. Mina said as she started crawling with the survivor in her hands. The closer she got to the light, the harder it was for her to see. In no time at all, she made it out of the rubble and saw Izuku very nervously pace back and forth. Inky, thank God, I thought you were done for. Izuku said it with tears in his eyes. I'm so glad you're alive. Yeah. Here, take this guy. Mina said worriedly as she gave the crying survivor to Izuku, who in turn started to comfort him, as a hero should. Crash. Mina and Izuku's hearts fell to their stomachs when they saw the hill of rubble collapse with thundering noise. Oh no. Mina said, in disbelief, as her hands moved to subconsciously cover her mouth. Izuku was a step above, and he was already 100% sure that he just got Luffy killed, and that a special seat in hell was being reserved for him at this very moment. Even the survivor stopped his act to look at the rubble. A couple of seconds pass, and Mina and Izuku notice a blackened hand pop out of the rubble. Mina and Izuku breathed out a huge sigh of relief they didn't even know they were holding. Izuku, after realizing he didn't commit murder, ran to help Luffy out and, with a quick use of his quirk, managed to get Luffy out of the rubble. Cough cough. Luffy coughed, completely covered from head to toe in dust. Thanks, cough Greenie. Oh, thank God. Mina and Izuku said it at the same time. Are you alright? Izuku asked. Yeah, I'm fine. Wait, Luffy suddenly said, scaring the two for a brief moment. He reached around his head and grabbed his hat, giving it a full inspection. Okay, we're good. I thought I repped it. You're going to give me a heart attack one of these days. Izuku shook his head, a little annoyed but mostly happy. Why would I give you that? Luffy was interrupted by the survivor. I hope you didn't forget about me. He said, coming up to the trio. Izuku completely forgot about him when the rubble fell. Ah, and no way. Izuku said as he scratched the back of his head. Listen, what you kids just did was incredibly dangerous, reckless, and downright stupid. The middle-aged man said. Wait, the survivors are our examinees. It finally dawned on Izuku. Let me finish. It was stupid, this case was supposed to be an incredibly difficult endeavor, something that should have been realized with 30 people, not 3. The middle-aged man said. That being said, since my case was very high risk, the reward should be equivalent. You see, every survivor has a priority list and based on the team, the points will be distributed equally. The survivor said with a small smirk on his face. Wait, does that mean? Izuku asked, feeling as if he just hit the jackpot. I'm not promising anything, all I'll say is congratulations. The survivor said and a huge feeling of accomplishment washed over Izuku and Mina. Luffy will understand what the survivor meant later on after being carefully explained by Izuku. Now stop standing around like a bunch of puppets. I have an OE and I miss my mommy. The survivor quickly got back into his role as a scared kid. Alright, I'll get you to a flashback of what Momo said popped up in Izuku's mind right now. Actually, Pinky, can you get the survivor to the perimeter set up by Shiketsu? Sure, I guess. Mina said as she grabbed the survivor in her arms. We'll wait for you here. Izuku said and they both watched as Mina nodded and started running, slowly disappearing in the distance. So, what now? Luffy asked as he plopped on the ground. Well, we wait, I guess. Izuku was pretty surprised, he usually feels pretty safe and comfortable around Luffy, but after Momo's last words to him, he feels as if Luffy's a lion and he, the mouse. But Luffy's trustworthy, right? He saved us countless times, Izuku thought. So, there shouldn't be any reason not to trust him. But, oh, wait, Momo's also trustworthy. Without her, half of this class would have failed their tests and she did help them with different enemies. So, what is Izuku, the hero, supposed to do? Ignore his classmates' warning and let Luffy loose or continue following Momo's warning and restrict Luffy? A true conundrum he has found himself in. Meanwhile, Momo's group. How many is that? Momo asked as she and Ochako ran towards another survivor. In the distance, Zero could be seen running with a survivor in his arms. That makes 10. Ochako says, panting while trying her best to keep Momo's pace. Hey, don't you think we should take a break? I mean, don't get me wrong. Huff, I want to pass this test and all, but it's kind of hard using my quirk so much and non-stop. If you can't keep up with me, then maybe you should have followed Bakugo. Momo coldly responded. Ochako gave Momo a worried look, not that Momo saw it. I mean, sure, she's also dead tired, being forced to use her haki when she hasn't even gotten to a basic level yet and making multiple complex structures to save as many people as possible ought to tire you out. But that's better than thinking about it, not wanting to think about it. She started to think about it funnily enough. Creati. Momo stop, Ochako yelled at Momo. This dragged Momo forcibly out of her thoughts and was met with a metal pole straight to the forehead. Not only did this hurt like hell, but falling on the broken concrete also didn't help. Ow, geez, Momo. Ochako said as she kneeled in front of Momo. Are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. I managed to create a bit of armor right before it hit my head. Momo said as she rubbed her back, that's the part that hurt her more than anything, honestly. Okay, good. That's good. Ochako said as she helped Momo up to her feet. Then care to tell me what's your problem? Excuse me? Momo was still reeling from her hit. Oh no, you excuse me, ever since this exam started, you've been cold as ice and mean to everyone who didn't meet your stupidly high standards, Ochako said as she aggressively poked Momo. Remember when you cursed Zero to hell and back? All I did was motivate him. Momo said as she crossed her arms and adopted a frown on her face. The moment they're talking about is when a survivor was trapped in an apartment building and the only way to get him out was through the window. It's not my problem that he can't aim his little duct tapes. It was the 20th floor, I'm pretty sure he started crying. Ochako further berated Momo. Zero isn't like you or Deku, he doesn't want to be a top hero, he just wants to be a regular hero. Maybe, just maybe, I was a little too hard on him. Momo admitted it through clenched teeth. Sigh, ever since this exam started, it's like you turned into a whole different person and it's worrying me. Ochako said as she softened her expression and placed her hand on Momo's shoulder. Let's go. There isn't a lot of time until the exam ends. Momo said as she shook off Ochako's hand. They started walking again. Fine. But after this exam is over, we're going to have a talk about what's happening, okay? Ochako said. Of course, she only wants what's best for Momo, but that doesn't seem to match with what Momo wants. Okay? Ochako said as she grabbed Momo's hand and stopped her from walking. Sure. Momo said, pretty obviously, that it was a lie. Unfortunately, for the survivor, multiple booms and explosions were happening everywhere, all at once. The remaining buildings were destroyed completely. Great, what now? Ochako said in a tired voice as she went back to back with Momo. Villains have performed another large-scale attack. Momo and Ochako heard the announcer say and watched as a giant explosion opened up the wall to this whole exam arena. Out of the hole, the pro-hero gang Orca appeared menacingly with a bunch of goons. Gang Orca was a hero, almost the size of All Might, whose strength was feared throughout the criminal network. Hey, this is part of the exam, right? Achako said a little fearfully, after all, who wouldn't be afraid of the rank 10 pro hero who's also in the top 3 in heroes who look like villains. Hey Momo. Eku? Do you hear me? Momo frantically switched her channel to Izuku's walkie-talkie. If asked, Achako would say that Momo looked like a mom who just found out her kid got hit by a bus. I repeat, do you hear me? I hear you. Izuku's voice was heard from Momo's walkie-talkie. Do not let Luffy out of your sight, Momo pretty much screamed over the receiver. Yeah, about that. That was all Momo needed to hear before she started running at speeds that would leave even Iida impressed. Look, I tried, BB, but he's Luffy. Wait mom, I mean Creaty, wait for me, Achako said as she tried her best to keep up with Momo, and props to her, she made a pretty good try, just not good enough. Aizawa and Ms. Joke. The terrorists have appeared and are continuing to sweep the area. Hero candidates have to continue their efforts to rescue civilians while also suppressing the newly arrived villains. Aizawa watched from the bleachers, along with Ms. Joke. Even for a pro hero this would be difficult. Is what I would normally say. Huh? What's that supposed to mean? Ms. Joke asked, a hint of concern in her voice regarding her students facing Gang Orca. Just watch, he should come up any second now. Aizawa said. Ms. Joke would normally crack a joke at this, but she felt a chill down her spine instead. Meanwhile, with Iida and his group, they want us to fight and rescue at the same time. Jiru said, a little outraged by the tone of her voice. Isn't this a little much? It is rather vexing, what should we do? Tokoyami asked with a bead of sweat down his face. Hold on, don't do anything rash, Iida said with as much authority as he could. He had his walkie-talkie in hand. I will contact Creaty and request her input. Creaty? Iida asked as he managed to reach her channel, a little harder than he hoped. It looks like Iida wasn't the only one trying to reach Momo. What? Momo yelled in her walkie-talkie so loudly that Iida almost dropped it. The sounds of her huffing and panting were pretty loud enough for Tokoyami and Jiru to hear. I was just wondering what we should do regarding the recent developments. Iida asked, scared not to upset Momo again. Huff, Luffy and I have it handled. Just do your jobs and tell that to the rest of the class. Momo said before she went silent. The trio exchanged looks of concern. Well, you heard her. Iida said, and they collectively went back to do what they were doing, with Iida having to call every single walkie-talkie that Momo made. Luffy. Shiketsu's perimeter. What's this? Only one hero to protect the civilians. Gang Orca said, the only thing that stood between him and a bunch of injured survivors was a first-year student in a straw hat. I didn't know they had fishmen here. Luffy said with a smile as he cracked his knuckles. I thought my message was pretty clear, but I guess not. Looks like I'll have to send another one. Let us help you can't take them all on by yourself, one of the students that were aiding the civilians said. He was accompanied by 6 more. As they were talking, a swarm, big enough to create a dust cloud, made out of Gang Orca's goons, was approaching them rapidly. Don't get in my way, you're only going to annoy me. Luffy said, and the students were about to protest, but Luffy took one look at Gang Orca's army. 1 second, they were running full speed ahead, the other, they were knocked out on the ground. I don't need any help. Understood. The students were more than happy to go back after seeing what Luffy just did. Aizawa. Whoa, what was that? Ms. Joke nearly jumped out of her seat as she watched Luffy knock out dozens upon dozens of goons with only a glance. So, he's finally showing his cards for the world to see. Aizawa thought with a stone-cold face. Why? Back to Luffy. I don't know what happened to my henchman, but don't think I'll go down that easily. Gang Orca said as he came out of the dust cloud. The first thing he saw was a fist. Gomu no pistol, Luffy yelled as he punched Gang Orca right into a broken wall, a good distance away from the perimeter. What the hell was that? Gang Orca thought in horror as he looked around for Luffy, not seeing him at all. That was until he heard him and looked up. Gomu no stamp. Luffy's leg almost knocked Gang Orca out if he didn't dodge. But he did. Unfortunately for him, Luffy grabbed him by the head and planted him straight into the ground, breaking it in the process. Luffy lifted him from the ground. But Luffy roundhouse kicked him into the arena wall. With a quick shave, he reached him before Gang Orca could tell up from down. Didn't she tell you? Bazooka not waiting for a response, Luffy bazookaed him back to where they started, near Shiketsu's perimeter. As he watched Gang Orca fly through the sky, he activated his second gear and jumped to him. Gomu no jet rifle, Luffy said while in the air. He punched Gang Orca so hard that his body made a crater in the ground, scaring to death some of the students and survivors. Luffy came down and pulled him out of the crater. By now, Gang Orca was already knocked out, but to Luffy, that didn't seem important. Don't worry, I'll make this message loud enough so that everyone can hear it. He activated his haki and grabbed Gang Orca by the top of his head. What Luffy was about to do would have been recorded as one of the darker days in Hero Society history if it weren't for Momo, who intervened just in time to save the day. Thanks to his hockey, Luffy managed to move just in time to dodge the throwing star that was aimed at his head. He looked in confusion at Momo, the one who threw that throwing star. That's a hero, he's not a villain, he's just pretending, Momo yelled at the top of her lungs, glad that Luffy stopped and even more glad that he dodged. Huh? Luffy took a look at Momo. Huh? And one at the knocked out gang orca. Ooh. Goddamn idiot. Momo muttered as she marched to Luffy and grabbed him by the ear. Ow, 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 that hurts, Luffy said it in pain as he was dragged away by Momo. The students and the civilians watched in absolute confusion and horror as the man, who single-handedly and effortlessly defeated the top 10 pro hero gang orca, was being dragged away like a misbehaving child at the mall being retrieved by his mother. In the back you could see a very confused flying Shiketsu student. Aizawa and Ms. Joke. What? Aizawa said, finally sick of being stared at by Ms. Joke. Oh, nothing. I'm just waiting for an explanation for whatever that was, Ms. Joke said, referring to the elephant in the room. Sigh, Luffy is Aizawa couldn't find the words. Let's just say he's special. Oh, so you got a class of those too, huh? Ms. Joke said, feeling sympathetic. Not like that. Aizawa quickly said. For the record, I don't think he was trying to kill gang orca. I didn't say anything. Ms. Joke said, she did think about it, though. I'm going to have to talk to him later. Aizawa said with his eyebrows furrowed. Probably a good idea. Ms. Joke said as she got back to focusing on her students. Luffy and Momo. Ow, 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 you can let go of my ear now, Luffy said, but was interrupted due to Momo throwing him into a broken wall. They were now in a secluded spot, away from prying eyes or ears. What the hell's wrong with you? Momo yelled at Luffy, anger and frustration very visible on her face. Luffy had the look of a dog getting a scolding from his owner. He realizes what he did was wrong, plus the fact that Momo's the one scolding him means he doesn't have a lot of ground to stand on. I mean, where do I even start? You almost killed somebody, and not just anybody, a pro hero, one that's in the top 10 of all of Japan. I mean, do you even realize how messed up what you almost did was? Momo raged on, it seems like with every word she took a step closer to Luffy, making him cower in the wall. First off, jail, you would have gone to jail, that pea-sized brain knows what jail is, right? That means no more UA, no more becoming a hero, and no more. Momo's words seemed to get stuck in her throat. No more me, but that's not even the worst part, it's the fact that you were going to do it and then go on to eat like 100 burgers. Don't you have a moral compass or nothing? Well, that's not true, I know you have it, you told me countless stories where you went to help some kingdom for basically no reward, unless those were lies. They weren't lies. Luffy found some ground, not a lot, but some. I'm not sure anymore since it seems I'm discovering new things about you. I wouldn't lie about that. Do you even want to become a hero? To me, it looks like the word hero means nothing to you, Momo proceeds unrelentingly. I don't, Luffy said, finally tired of getting scolded and pushed past Momo, not boxed in anymore. I never wanted to become a hero in the first place, I just want to get back to being a pirate, cause that's what I am, a pirate, always have been and always will be. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Pirate, I couldn't tell, Momo said it in a mocking tone. So what, you're going to go on a killing spree? Just go around and kill everyone who you don't like. Momo didn't take her eyes off of Luffy, while Luffy couldn't keep his eyes on her. Obviously not, Luffy said, looking straight into her eyes for this one. He sounded outraged. Then where's the line? Is there even one? Momo said, dropping her anger a bit. How many? Luffy turned away at this. Luffy looked ashamed. How many? Momo did not stop. Mumble. What was that? I never counted. Luffy wouldn't normally be ashamed to admit this, but this new relationship made Luffy reconsider a lot of things, or so it seemed. I never thought about killing as stopping someone's life or journey, I only saw it as a way to continue mine. I figured there was no point in counting. So, I never did. Luffy, weirdly enough, felt good after admitting that, but the look on Momo's face far outweighed the good. Oh my god. Momo was at a loss for words. The realization struck hard. Luffy, the man she idolized, respected and considered a brother, had taken countless lives without remorse. He would have willingly killed hundreds if it meant getting 1 inch closer to his goal, and he did it without any guilt, like he were some sort of psychopath. You are a psychopath. She muttered. It finally clicked for her. What's that? Luffy, clueless as ever, asked. Luffy, tell me one thing. Do you take pleasure in killing? Momo asked plainly, and her face returned to a neutral cold look. Not really, I mean, I kind of like it when I beat someone really strong, Luffy said, an image of Kaido flashing through his mind. But I never did it because I liked it. Good, that's good. Momo muttered it with a small sigh of relief. I can work with that. Freeing all of the survivors who were deployed have been rescued from the disaster zone. With this, the official licensing exam has officially been completed, the announcer said over the speaker, with as much motivation as he had, which wasn't that much. After we tally the scores, we will announce the results here in the arena at the board that will be installed soon. Anyone injured should go to the infirmary. Anybody else should feel free to change clothes and wait wherever you like. Momo? Luffy asked, a bit scared of her response. Let's go and change. We should be here when they tell us our grades. Momo said with an aura of mystery around her, one that not even Luffy could tell. Okay. Luffy followed without another word. The little journey to change their clothes went on without a single word exchanged between those two, and the same went for anyone who tried to talk to them. Just worried silence from Luffy and a cold one from Momo. The board. Okay, everyone, thanks for your hard work in today's exam. Now, before I announce the results, I should probably explain the way we evaluated you. Between HUC and the Heroes Public Safety Commission, we had a two-fold demerit system to be used to determine your total scores. In other words, we evaluated you based on how few mistakes you've made in a crisis situation. Anyway, the names of the people who passed will be displayed here in alphabetical order. The announcer said this as the huge board lit up and showed a lot of names. As a lot of students searched the board frantically for names, one didn't look all that interested. We passed Luffy, congratulations. Momo said, finding their names almost instantly. I'm up there, just call me a hero. Mineta celebrated. I did it. There, I am alright. Jiru, Iida and Shaoji celebrated mildly. I'm on the board, thank goodness. What a relief. Good. Echako, Siro, Ejiro and Tokoyami felt more relieved than anything else. Magnificia Ribid Aoyama, Mina and Tsu also celebrated. I passed, killed it, sigh. Toru, Kaminari celebrated loudly while Todoroki didn't look at all phased that he passed. Right on, but Kirishima was also happy that he passed, but more so scared that Bakugo apparently didn't. No way, Bakugo yelled in frustration. Hey, all our classmates passed. Siro was happy that everyone had passed. Well, maybe except, shut your mouth before I blast you all to hell. A very controlled Bakugo said he was one comment away from going nuclear on the whole arena. I'm scared to talk to Kachin, a frightened Izuku thought as he inched away slowly. But now I can tell All Might that I've finally become a licensed hero. Next, we will give you the details of your results. They will include the exact details that you will need to improve going forward. The announcer said that as a group of men handed out a sheet of paper to every student. Each student wanted to know what they got and what their friend got, as proved by a very annoyed Bakugo and Kirishima. Meanwhile, Luffy barely glanced at his paper, he only saw his score. 53 points. He muttered, and Izuku was close enough to hear it. Wow, that means you barely passed. I got 80 points, which is pretty weird, seeing as how you stopped Gang Orca and everything. By the way, I wanted to ask you, what happened to him? With Gang Orca, I mean. Izuku asked as he showed Luffy his own breakdown of the exam. I beat him, that's about it. Luffy said, not looking all that interested in talking about it. I see. Luffy said but thought. Obviously there was more, seeing the difference in our points, Yaoyorozu's message, and the way you act. But I'll just keep my mouth shut for now. I'll let her deal with you first. Moving forward, you will be able to act as a pro hero during emergency situations, such as villain attacks or saving victims from criminal acts. Keep in mind that with every action you take, a deep responsibility will be tied to it and the world will be watching you. I'm sure you're aware that All Might, our greatest hero, no longer has his incredible power. One of the reasons crime in this country has been so low is due to his presence. With that deterrent gone, crime would be sure to skyrocket. Expect the balance we currently have to be destroyed and for things to change quickly. We expect a great deal from you, so make sure not to disappoint us and our current society. You're all still just rookies, but you have so big shoes to fill, so make sure fill them fast and fill them good. For those of you who didn't pass, we don't have time to wallow in your self-pity, instead, we offer you a chance to redeem yourself at the 3-month-long special course and attend a special test. So, don't keep us waiting, the streets of Japan are ready to be filled with young and promising heroes. We will be watching you all, so make sure not to disappoint. See man. It's not a big deal, you're just going to be 3 months late. Kirishima said with a friendly pat on Bakugo's back. Move your hand before I break it. Bakugo threatened, but Kirishima only laughed at this. Bakugo wasn't any less mad, but at least he was relieved that it wasn't all over for him. And with that, the exam is now officially over for some, for others, they still feel like they're in the arena. The front of the building. As students called their parents to celebrate and others were dancing with joy, 2 students walked together to the bus. As Luffy and Momo passed Izuku, they heard an interesting conversation. Hello, Izuku excitedly asked, with a pen and paper already in hand, one of the Shiketsu High students, the one covered in hair. Huh? He responded. I want to know more about the training you do to erase your presence, he excitedly asked, and Momo's ear twitched at this. We hadn't learned anything like that. The student responded confusedly. Huh? But that girl, the one in the bodysuit, did it. I wanted to ask her more about it, do you have any idea where she might be? Izuku asked, and Luffy's muscles tensed. Bodysuit? Oh, you mean Kami? I haven't seen her at all since the start of the exam, it's becoming a bit of a concern within our class. The student responded worriedly. Oh, is that so? I hope you find her. I really wanted to talk to her. Izuku offered his sympathies. Yeah, thanks. I just hope nothing too bad happened. The student was interrupted. I saw her. Momo was the one who interrupted, this spooked Luffy a bit. You did? The student asked. Yes, we talked and she told me that she didn't feel too well, so she had to go home. She says she's sorry. Momo lied without an ounce of fear in her voice, just complete confidence. Sigh normally, I wouldn't believe you, but she has been acting strangely, especially these last few days. Thank you, I just hoped she would have told us. The student said it with a resigned sigh. She does too. Momo said, and with a small nod, they saw each other off. Izuku was left with Momo and Luffy. So, how do you know Kami? Izuku said, trying to make small talk. No offense, but can you go on ahead? Momo said it with an apologetic voice. Me and Luffy have some things to talk about. Oh, okay. Izuku said, sounding pretty worried about this talk, but he didn't complain. Now there were two, just Luffy and Momo. Momo, who was pacing back and forth, and Luffy, who was watching Momo like somebody would watch a bomb with a timer. So, Momo, I don't like it, I'll make this clear from the jump. Momo stopped pacing. I don't like your lack of empathy towards your enemies. Well, let me finish, I don't like it, but I'm not going to make the mistake of abandoning you, so you're going to have to promise. Promise? Exactly. Promise me that from now on, no matter who it is, you won't kill. No matter how tempting it may be or how much they may deserve it, you're not going to do it anymore. I promise. Luffy didn't care all that much about killing, he was fine with putting them in prison, but he was happy that he didn't destroy his relationship with Momo. Good. And I promise never to let you cross that line again. As long as I'm alive, every enemy you face will end up in prison, not the morgue. Deal? Deal. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.